You know what a fucking supercomputer is, Jay?
It's a mainframe, bro.
It's a fucking mainframe! This is the Imperial Scrolls of Honor podcast. I'm Josh Folan.
And I'm Jay Baxtron.
And we are going to be bullshit about the formative years of console gaming as we revisit the periodicals that covered it again. Today, we are one day at a timing through our Deadly Towers recovery process with just what the doctor ordered. Nintendo Power issue 21. You can find the issue on archive.org if you want to look at the shit we're looking at. I'll drop the link in the show notes, as I always do. Please rate and review the podcast. If you feel so inclined to leave feedback in the form of a review, we'll read it here on the pod as long as it makes us feel good and or laugh. Had some ratings, actually, recently, but no new reviews. So we like to actually read words and be able to emote to the praise / feedback we are given, not just 5 stars. And
although we will thank you for those 5 stars.
Yeah. We appreciate those too, but nondescript praise. We want to actually feel it. We want to connect with you and feel it. So please do leave ratings as well. What are we jamming on now, Jay? What are you jamming on now?
Oh man, so unfortunately, I've been sick lately. Haven't been able to play a lot, so I've been sprinkling in a little bit of zombies here and there. But a lot of your TMNT posts that I've been seeing reminded me, like, wait a minute, there's a DLC, I think, to Shredder's Revenge. So pulled it out, and I was absolutely right. There's 2 new characters, Usagi, who I thought I had to explain to you who this person was, but so much respect for that.
Usagi was in the... I mean, I want to say that was like... He wasn't in the first line, but I want to say he was in the second line of action figures and in the early cartoon seasons, so...
Yeah. What about there was also a character called Karai. Do you know who that is? It's like a woman, but I don't know her story, her background.
So. Okay. That doesn't sound familiar. No, they didn't really do female action figures in the 80s, so. April O'Neil, the one damsel in distress, that was it. That's pretty much it as far as TMNT.
That's true. That's fair.
Female figures goes.
Yeah. Either way, this is fun stuff. Not any new content, so that was a little disappointing. But otherwise, it was fun being able to add those characters as well as playing Casey Jones, Splinter.
That's it. They called DLC just some characters. Like,
yeah, it's characters. There's some other stuff as well, but either way, it's not like new stages, which is what I was hoping for.
Yeah, that's what I'd be hoping for if I were to buy DLC also.
But at the same time, it was like a couple dollars. Like it really was like less than coffee. So I was fine with that because this is a game we were going to play over and over anyway because it's so fun. Why not? But in playing that, it reminded me like, oh yeah, I have the Cowabunga collection. Let me play the other ones. But then I realized as I was going through this episode, like I'm gonna hold off in case one of these other ones get voted in. But my turtle nostalgia was peaked a little more.
Plus,
to say the least.
Okay. TMNT 2, the arcade game will do that for sure.
Yeah, it's a classic. Like what are we talking about? Like it's the game. Anyway, we'll get into a lot more of that later. But I've been playing a little more Mortal Kombat 1. I've beat the game, the main campaign. Now I've just kind of been working through the towers, trying out new fatalities, another mode that they have, which is similar to the Crypts, where you're kind of going through a castle, having different encounters. It's a whole different mode. I'm not sure I like it, but it's, I'm just checking it out. But I also got a wild hair and decided to download Forza Motorsport, which I'd never played before. I'm all about Forza Horizon, open world RPG racing. It's great, amazing game. But I was watching Gran Turismo, like the movie, recently, and that Formula One style, Indy 500, whatever you want to call it, lap racing. I don't know. I wanted to try that, and obviously being an Xbox guy, I realized Motorsport would be the play. So, man, that game is freaking great. I never even heard of these. I never really played them. They've never been my type of game, but just another amazing Forza racing game, Not much else to say there. Like, if you're a big racing guy, obviously you could gush about it, but I'm not really into the, tuning your car and like all that. All the details of it that I'm sure would make everybody else go, woo!
That part would probably actually, I would probably actually enjoy that part of it. The like, I'm sure the intricacies with like building your car are pretty thorough, would be my guess in that in a game like that. So I actually probably would kind of enjoy that. The racing part I would probably struggle with a little bit. I did this. I did another one of those study. Ford wanted me to do a study, so I went and did this.
Really?
All right. Actually, well, I don't think they told me what brand it was, but it was clearly Ford once I got there. Anyways, I was doing that, and they had a part. One of the things they had was like it's kind of like a prototype interface, like that different dashboard things and like shit to do on your screen. And they had an Xbox controller and you could play. They had a racing game to play on the screen. Awesome. And I actually played for a few minutes this fucking racing game on a car console, basically.
What?
So for the first time, I might have been. It could have been. I think it was actually. What's the Xbox?
Forza?
Yeah, I think it was Forza. So my whole point being, I actually did dabble in it ever so briefly. Now, nice. And it was cool. It looked cool, but I mean, I was sitting and playing it for an extensive period of time. Like, it seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be in the car trying to play that game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they are sure to point out that you're not supposed to do that while driving, of course. Yeah. Sure.
I mean, I would miss. I mean, having that option as a kid on the amount of long distance road trips.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god.
That would just be next level. I mean, it would have to be
like
on
the SUV back of the seat things.
Oh,
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm almost not. I'm sure. Like, they just have to exist. So I'm sure that possibility exists for kids these days. And yeah, holy fuck! Thinking about sitting in the back seat playing your Tiger LCD handheld instead.
Right. Like wait, as the sun goes down.
Oh my god, kill me now! Yeah, right. Yeah, kill it. This is how's the shit. Even like the back seat light. In a car in 1987 is terrible. You can't even. Yeah, this is not even comparable life quality situation.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, man, that's pretty much it. Sadly, I definitely got some things on the docket. But what about you, man? What have you been playing these days?
I wouldn't say like I've like a reduced amount of gaming, but I don't have a ton to talk about really. Maybe the most important thing is the Fallout shit behind me. I watched that over the past, since it came out. Was it Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it was? And, when I initially, like literally, I mean, the first 20 minutes of it, I think I was like livid because there were all these, what I perceived as oversights or deviations from the lore. And, that's obviously, you're on pins and needles about that for any adaptation.
Like lore and accuracy, what are we doing?
Yeah. How are you going to shit all over this really well-crafted story world for your stupid-ass TV show, So I was on pins and needles about that and probably a little too testy. As ultimately, all the concerns I had, which were like the tech stuff in particular, like the big thing, and that because it's so early, I don't think it does it either way, actually. But one of the really interesting things about Fallout is on the technical side, like the whole basis for why everything, all the technology has kind of like that oversized, clunky, humoristic vibe to it is because they never invented the semiconductor. Like everything is still on vacuum tubes and shit is the whole idea in Fallout. So that's why everything is like, the nuclear technology. That's why they stick with it in such a way, because there's like all these technical dependencies. And I'm probably fucking this up myself too, and I'll probably get roasted for this. But like to some degree or another, that's the idea, is that there was this point in the development of technology where they went a different direction and weren't able to like make things as small as we've made them. Electrical circuits and such. So early on, they're in this, they're in the vault. They start in a vault, and there's like a room with like this screen that like can look like anything, and it looks like an outdoor. I'm like, you couldn't do that with like the screens are shitty because they're on LCD screens in all of Fallout. They never developed like fucking LCD technology, for screens and shit. So like super, like I was irate immediately. I'm like, well, this is totally bullshit. Then if they're not going to adhere to that, this is going to be a dog shit show, because that's like the crux of so much of the lore, I think, and like, I guess they don't really technically answer that specifically, but generally speaking, that and some of the other things that I took issue with early on were relatively satisfied in the long term. So that, my initial aversions we got past that, and then beyond that, it's just a great show. Walter Goggins, dude. I mean, that fucking dude. I think he is on my list now of like Woody Harrelson, Sam Rockwell type actors that, like, if they're in it, you don't have to ask any questions. It's like the odds of it being bad are just microscopic. Like, that dude does nothing but great work and only aligns himself with good projects, with good people helming them and in them, and that is, there's not a lot of things in the entertainment space, especially like the studio level, that I like. If I just see it, I'm like, oh, I don't have any, but no questions. Like, I'll watch that, and it's nice to have another one of those, I think, because there's not a lot of them,
Wow.
So he's fucking great. He plays like this ghoul character, and he is just fucking great, dude. He's like, just so funny and entertaining. Every second he's on screen, he's just like always interesting, in some way, shape, or form, and that is obviously what being a movie star is supposed to be.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Man, I'm like,
so, yeah, he's.
I cannot wait to watch the rest of it this week, or not the rest of it. Just
how far in are you?
I haven't watched any of it. Like, I'm ready because we just got back, the other day from being out of town. So we had my mother-in-law over, and she was saying how she watched the whole thing already. I was like,
oh,
whoa.
really?
And she has no familiarity. Yeah, she has no familiarity with the game at all. So
it's cool, dude. It's an amazing.
So she said at first, she was like,
story.
I had no idea what was even happening. So I was kind of like, what's going on? But then after she got into it, then she was like, oh, this is great. So I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. So if you have no familiarity at all and you were still hooked, I'm excited, because obviously those games, are so good. So yeah.
Yeah, the story world is just great, man. And this one they did, and I don't think it's a spoiler either. You'll quickly learn it. But it's set in Los Angeles. So one, I live here, so that's interesting. And just, whenever you see that like apocalypse-sized version of places you're familiar with, it's interesting, of course, So that's cool. But more importantly, it allows them some creative freedom that they wouldn't have had if they would have set it somewhere where one of the games has already been, you know what I mean? DC or Vegas or whatever. So
yeah, that
was cool that they were able to, avoid probably other things like my dumbass had in the first 20 minutes, yeah. by doing that and building their own lore. But still, they did a fantastic job of still tying it in, and like, yeah, I mean, there's other stuff that I would love to talk about, but it's kind of spoilery. And yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say if you like Fallout, fuck yes, Jesus Christ, watch it. But yeah, I think, case in point, your fucking mother-in-law. Like, how old is she? Like fucking
yeah,
what?
Yeah,
like fucking 60 something, and she fucking enjoyed it.
She's
like,
I have no idea what's happening. Yeah, I have no idea what's happening at first, but then after that, it was like, oh, okay, but this is good.
Well, that's why it's such a cool story world, is because it has that like 50s thing going on, that I think anyone can relate to, and maybe more importantly, feel comfortable to spend the time to get invested in the stuff happening in that world, and obviously, again, post-apocalyptic is kind of easy. I mean, I think the human brain has a fascination with that inherently, I think. So that is also an easy aspect of it. But yeah, it great. I mean, I watched the last 4 episodes last night right in a row, and like 2. The only reason I stopped the first 2 nights is because Amy fell asleep. And last night I was like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, watch it on your own.
That is quite the recommendation. If you can just move on without your wife, then that's quite the show. That's quite. It calls quite the stir in our house.
I mean, yeah, that's That's not an uncommon thing. It does not. It does not factor into the quality of the content that was falling asleep during. And if I waited, if I turned off everything the second she fell asleep, I wouldn't. My backlog would be endless.
Fair point.
Beyond watching that, still sipping a little bit. I doing a little bit of that here and there. We still gotta finish that game we started, but we're almost there on that. So I guess time will tell if we start another one or if that was just a one-off thing. And then I'm still doing my puzzling places shit, pressing onward in my ancient Egypt puzzle pack. I finished the pyramids, and I have moved on to the Sphinx, which is even harder. And I've never been, that's one of the places I want to go. I've never been there. And the cool thing about this, maybe too, is that it is these perfect 3D models of real things. So it's more than just looking at a picture, or even if they were just hands you a 3D model of the area, because you are searching for fucking pieces and trying to put it together. You like hyper focus in on every little aspect of it. And like the Sphinx, for example, is like, it's not just the statue. It is the grounds surrounding it. So there's like this thing in front of it that it kind of looks like some sort of burial site or something, would be my guess. I don't know. I guess I probably will end up Googling exactly what it is. It's got to be, there's headstone. It's got to be some sort of burial thing. But I never knew that was there. And I've been fascinated with ancient Egypt my whole life. It's certainly on, if I were to say I had a bucket list, it would be there. And because I'm putting this puzzle together, I know more about it than I would have ever probably known. You would never think to Google, like, what's in front of the Sphinx? So that's cool. So that's really cool. And same thing with the pyramids too. It was like the two big ones, and there's like another little one, a little bit up over here. And then like the grounds around it, there's all these, like, there's other shit that's not just fucking pyramids in the middle of nowhere. There's like other shit around it, these little buildings and like remnants of things and like ruins of all kinds and shit. So it's really cool, and I think an interesting teaching tool for something like that, just to make you more aware of places you haven't been that you maybe would like to. So yeah, it's again, such a cool app. And I'm still plugging away in Asgard's Wrath 2, chipping away at those 100% completion objectives before I get into what has been clearly communicated to me as the final battle against Set. So I'm there. I just have to go talk to this woman, and she's going to take me to the battle. So like I can do that whenever I want. But Bung, my buddy Bungard, told me that when you beat the game, you can't go back. And do the shit. So yeah. I'm not, I'm gonna 100% everything, or at least the best of my ability. There's a couple like dumbass, fucking like, there was one, like, what is there? There's 6, I think. The 2 deserts, Papyrus Swamp, the fucking fire area, and then so there's 5 like areas, and I got the first 2 to 100%. Because like there's like, so you have like 4 numbers under each whatever, like map info area, and you have the total completion percentage. You have, I think there's monster dens, which are just like caves you find. You got to kill everything in and get the loot out of. There's fishing spots, and then there's one other thing. What the fuck is it?
Oh my gosh, fishing spots.
One of the and the fishing is that, yeah. I mean, I don't. It's. There's so many different fish, and there's different. They implement the uses for them in different ways. So I'm not going to say it's a total waste of whatever, but like, it doesn't have any skill. It's not. It's like it doesn't have. You just have to like. I mean, there is like, you can't just at the first bite pull it in. There's like a harder bite, but it's so easily discernible once you know it, and like. Maybe the first couple of times you go fishing, there's a little bit of like, am I not going to get the fish kind of thing? But beyond that, it's cake. So yeah, the fishing stuff, fucking not a good thing. But there's a ton of spots for sure. And so yeah, those 3 things, and then the total completion percentage, and like, those first 2 levels, like I got them to 100% across the board, and I mean, I've discovered a few extra little side quest kind of thingies. as I've fulfilled these requests that you got to do that open up new requests, you know? Mm-hmm. So maybe that's it, but there's a couple, like I think the second stage where like now it's like all 3 of the sub things are 100%, fishing spots, monster dens, and whatever the other one is, and the total completion thing has went down to 99%, and it's like, secret chest, that's the other one. Secret chest, monster dens, and fishing spots. And it's like, sure, there's other things. There's like these Hootafolk, like little riddles you got to solve and give an item to these little elf dudes. So there are other things that can be in a stage, but like to have no clue what it would be on this map I've totally explored, and like, you know, it's just like, it's so frustrating because like there's just not enough. There's no FAQs or guides out there I'm gonna have to just find it if I really want to 100%. And there's also a chance, like there's one monster den, and I have found confirmation of this on the web. There's one monster den in the 4th area that's like broke. Like you can't finish it. So like I'm never going to, until they patch it, I guess, which it's been I've known this for months, so they clearly aren't prioritizing patching it. You know, so I may never be able to do it 100%, even if I spend all the time, which just is so frustrating for my inner retentive ass. But I want to, and there's still a few things like I'll at least like with the first one I might remember there was like the keys thing where I was like I couldn't quite 100% it because I needed these keys, and once I started going back and figuring out how stupid it was to try to find them, I was able to let go and just not do that part and not quite 100% the game. So hopefully I can come to the same emotional place with this one, but I'm going to do my best to come as close as possible. So,
oh my gosh.
But yeah, those 2 things are pretty much it. Puzzling places and that as far as the VR stuff. And then I've gotten quite a bit done in the side questing on Phantasy Star as well, but that story is for another time.
That is the world map theme from Star Tropics, bringing us in. Josh, aren't you excited? Look at the cover of this episode, this magazine. It just doesn't it look so beautiful and tropical, like a great place to be, you know?
Yeah, it is a very eye-catching cover. Yeah, there's no questioning that whatsoever. It is the February 1991 issue, $350 cover price, $450 Canadian. And yes, a tropical parrot dominates what I would call a new style of art for Nintendo Power. Instead of that like really smooth clay look so many of the covers have had to date, this has what looks to be like layered construction paper cutouts, especially on the parrot. I was thinking like the trees in the background as well. Yep. There's an account, Art of Nintendo Power, that follows us on Instagram, and that account's ran by this dude Stephen Reese, who is a probably the hardcorest collector of Nintendo Power relics. He's got like, dude, he has like he's actually gotten, I believe he has the Mario clay model. There's like he has like a lot of like the dioramas and shit that like these are photographed. You know, they're not. Yeah. They're not digitally made. Like they actually made these things and then photographed them back in the day. So that's why they look really interesting the way they do. Anyways, he's pointing out, or rather he weighed in and pointed out that the whole cover is a photograph. Just like I said, all of them are. But the background here is sculpted and then the bird is papercraft. So yes, they did mix it up as far as like the mediums, I guess, with which they built it relative to previous iterations, which is pretty cool. You know, that I guess they're getting outside the box for the cover art. It is cool, whatever the case. Whatever they made it out of, it looks fucking awesome. Very eye-catching. It's like, you know, it's that pink, you know, is part of like the Dr. Mario cover. We had the same thing to say about. It's just like a very, very eye-grabbing color palette. Perils in Paradise is the tagline they go with for the headline game, Star Tropics. And then we have Don't Miss as the first bullet point, and they go with what I generally cannot fathom as being a more emotionally disparate pair of games to present to you, Jay. It is TMNT 2, the arcade game, and then Ultima Quest of the Avatar.
Like, whoa.
It's just like ripping you in polar diametrically opposed directions. I think you pair this with your current side quest stand of Star Tropics, and I feel like they made this cover specifically to elicit an emotional response from one Jay Baxtron. Like,
are you kidding me? Like, for sure. This cover is crazy to me because in addition to just visually looking great, I looked at this and it immediately had this nostalgic pull. And as I looked through it, I'm like, I'm sure, like, I didn't really own many Nintendo Power magazines. I was always going to the library. But this one, I definitely either, like, sat at the library. Like, this is one of my first ones. It had to be to, like, have in my hands, going through. Maybe I purchased it with my own money. Like, I don't know. But this one was such, like, every page, every spread that we'll talk through, like, starting with this was just like, oh my gosh, you know?
I feel that. It's funny because it's like the flip side for me. This is the first issue after my subscription. So this is the first one I didn't have as a child. Or not the first one, but the first in a while since like that first year of them. And yeah, for that, I don't know how to describe like the emotion. It's like, it feels like this coming out, like, 'cause I those issues that I had, dude, I memorized. Every page is like I don't know, maybe that's probably an overstatement, but there's just so much of it that's familiar, just like you're describing, you know, from every issue we've been going through up to this. And I got to this issue and it's just like, you know, I've clearly seen the cover before just on the internet and shit. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just such a different emotional experience going through it because it was the first one that I didn't have, you know, and it's like so close too, you know, like there's still, it's a lot of the same shit. Content is in there that we've been talking about or close to or seen previews or whatever. So it was just weird. I guess maybe it's more specifically to say like it's so weird how it's unfamiliar but still familiar, you know. And it's just a really weird emotional experience going through this issue for me relative to the ones we've been doing, which was cool, of course. And honestly, I mean, yeah, again, that's maybe part of the. I always talk about the things like I'm getting from this pod and the reasons I'm glad I'm doing it. Like now we're going to really start getting into the stuff that like us on the Nintendo side, because basically the reason this is happening, it didn't quite happen here. It's not like I like stopped getting Nintendo Power and immediately started getting Sega Visions and went over to the dark side. But like now I'm in that transition period basically where I'm kind of Nintendo's getting a little bit kiddie and like I'm going to start turning my attention towards Genesis, and like this limbo area for Nintendo is going to get really interesting for me, and I'm excited about that, I guess. Also is another point about this.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Pretty fun. So the last thing on here, which also again I think it's just like Jay's issue, like it's the Round Ball Roundup is for Game Boy. It's like their Game Boy basketball feature is the last thing here. And what I would say, like relative again to previous issues, it's kind of an abridged amount of text. Like the bullet points, it's like kind of light, I think, relative to a lot of the issues. They didn't really put as much up here. Maybe because the art's so fucking good, they're like, we don't want to trash it with words, which I can align with for sure. But
I mean, it makes sense. Plus, you got a couple great games: Star Tropics, TMNT 2, and Game Boy. Like, yeah, that's enough to pull me in. Like,
don't just leave out Ultima. Don't just leave out Ultima like that, Jay.
Hey, 11-year-old Jay doesn't have any idea what Ultima is at this time. So, like I'm saying, I'm just like these other things sound great. Let's go.
Sure, you know? sure. Moving into the mag, a new subscribe to Nintendo Power ad is first up, and it is fucking extreme! It's behind me right now, or one of the 3 panels of it is behind me. You can't even fit it all in a background because it's 3 pages. And very cool design. I had never seen it. And so the first 2 pages are a spread of a cool teen kid in a jean jacket with lots of super dope pins on the pocket and an NES controller in his hands, and those hands have like prosthetic monster shit going on with them, like scales, long talons on the end. Do the chickens have large talons? And there's another page that went over the top of it. So actually, that's not the first 2 pages. That was the latter 2 pages, I should say. And the first page that went over top of it had holes cut out so you could see the kid's eyes below it. And then it was mostly dominated by this crude mask drawn around the eyes. And the text reads the unmask the power animal in you. And then there are instructions in the corner to flip up to unmask the kid, you know. And once you unmask / reveal the kid, you are implored to radicalize your game with a subscription to Nintendo Power. And then there is a shit ton of scintillating copy to drive it home. Each month, you'll get it all. Scorching power tips, molten hot strategies, amazing inside info, and must-have advice. Straight from the pros at Nintendo. Score it now. And your mailbox will never be the same when 12 white-hot issues of Nintendo Power char the paint off it every month, which is just, Woo. Again, they are just fucking all fire all the time in these adjectives here. It's pretty intense. You hold the key to unlimited power. The attached order form is your key to commanding the incredible power. Fill it out, detach it, mail it, brace yourself. It's like, okay, stop. He's dead already. Like, you fucking take it easy, man. I'm already here. I got the issues in my hands, man. Relax. I like Nintendo Power. You don't fucking.
That's great.
So it's still $15 a year, and that is a $2.25 savings per issue. Not a bad fucking deal. And there's also a back issue order form attached to the base order form. And the issues listed on it as available go all the way up to volume 27, which is August of 91. And I don't really understand that, given it's February when the shit is hitting newsstands and mailboxes, but whatever. I guess they just make this one now. It'll last us all year. Maybe it's just like a fucking, like a design cost-saving idea. But you can also, a cool thing about this, though, you can score full year sets, which I thought was really cool. Like they have issues 1 through 6 or 7 through 12 are available for $24. And then they also are selling the strategy guides. Interestingly, not as part of like these annual boxed sets, but rather standalone strategy guides. So they're already thinking them internally as like not part of the canon,
Makes sense.
Or lineage of mags. Yeah, they're not. They're obviously so different, but it was interesting to me to see them there they're with those early stage strategy guides for how to win at Super Mario Brothers and the Legend of Zelda, whatever, tips and tactics or whatever it is. Their early stage strategy guides. So just kind of interesting. The newly rebranded letter from the editor, Powerline, is first up for actual content, and the lead here is the nuts and bolts article for the month, how Nintendo's internal rating system and power meters work, and I was very much pleased to know that was on the horizon, to hear kind of the inner workings of that, and they're teasing the headliner games also. Most notable quip from all that is a prediction that Mike from Star Tropics is destined to join the ranks of Link and Mario in Nintendo stardom.
Right.
And, freezing cold tweets should retweet that along with the Bills will never trade Stephon Diggs tweets. That did not pan out as he was predicting. And that is across from the TOC, and I'm still, whatever. Again, the horse is fucking dead and beaten, but I'm pretty salty that they've weaned this down to a single page. It was such a beautiful part of the mag as this big 2-banger spread, the table of contents. So still bums me out to see that in a more constricted form, but it is still beautiful. Players Pulse and Mailbox now. What wild and wacky ruminations do you got for us circa February 91 proto-Lorg disciples? It's actually kind of it's a little no zingers in here really. This is kind of a bummer as far as the mailbox goes. There's really not much going on. They're doing the prompts now. They've started doing like a writing prompt to like kind of categorize the letters that come in to some degree or another. So the one that this is fielding or printing the letters from is Nintendo Gaming Disasters, and the two they put in here are kind of just like advertisements for the rugged nature of the rugged durability of Nintendo hardware. They have one of a Game Boy still working after it flies out the window, and it's sure to point out like minor fender bender. Well, again, we were just talking about the kid in the back seat. That's an example right there. if the screen is in I guess your Xbox controller could still fly out of your hand and do the same thing maybe. And I bet that would not last as well as a Game Boy did in 1991. But there's that, and then an NES is still working after a chair leg punched a hole in the top of the control deck during a shoddy moving packing job situation. So
this is fascinating to me though, because the first one, they don't tell you like, hey, I wanted, like the second letter they say, hey, you wanted to hear about my disaster, this is what's happening. So like the first one, the first letter, all I could think while reading it was, you just jumped out the car during this accident. Like my parents would have snatched me by the collar of my shirt. Like, where are you running off to? Like he just runs off to find.
Yeah, that's the tough part about it. I mean, you have to assume that there's a parent involved with the letter writing, but like because the kid was the creative spearhead, it doesn't do a good job at all of like painting the world, you know.
Right.
So yeah, like I mean, he does point out that no one's not like fucking people were dying or anything, but yeah, it definitely does not explain well enough exactly how it all went down, you know. Yeah, that was a mild, and not frustrating, but just like the main heads or tails of this. I need more information, child.
Like down over the bank. I'm like, was this off a river? Like, what are we? You know, I'm thinking you just ran off after this accident, like over the bridge. You hop down to the water. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, my take on it, my rationalization to pull a J here, maybe to make it make sense and not be, worthy of all too much criticism, is that like it's one of those situations like they get stopped, they're exchanging information, the kid is now just like has everything's safe, the kid has gotten out of the car and he's just fucking waiting, and he's like, I'm gonna look for my fucking Game Boy. and goes and does it in a relatively safe manner, that's how I get through that. But yeah, it could have used some more adjectives for sure.
That's fair.
And then there are a couple of letters about pets and NES action as well, surely inspiring the new letter prompt for next month of sending in more pet stories and pics and shit that are related to your NES shit. And then Video Spotlight is a kid, he's in his early 20s, a kid and his early 20s brother-in-law. So, I mean, if you do the math there, mom must be shacking up with a gray fox, basically, is what's going on there. For there to be this major disparity in ages with the children. But anyway, so they're boring and they're a pretty bunk player's pulse. They go in line pretty well with the bunk player's pulse deal.
Yeah.
I don't really have much interesting to say other than I guess that I did emote to it a little bit in that it's not exactly the same, but like my uncle, that's kind of the relationship my uncle and I had. Like, he was like younger than my dad by a considerable margin. Mm-hmm. So I guess his half brother, and was kind of like the same thing. This like technically adult figure that could do adult things and like chaperone and drive and do things that you would like to be able to do, but still young enough to like be kind of childlike and enjoy Nintendo and yada yada yada. So kind of emoted to that aspect of it, but they didn't really have anything specific interesting to say, games or whatever.
Yeah.
So now, with that out of the way, Jay, Cowabunga! We get our first feature. It's a 16-banger on TMNT, the Arcade Jam Via Ultra, and it's an epic level-by-level ride through all 7 scenes, i.e. levels in the game. Oh. And pretty good. They had a tease a couple months ago, but this is the first we're like getting like here's the whole deal thing. And there's actually shit. I mean, I have played the arcade game. And I've certainly played the NES game. I didn't realize that there were 2 whole stages that were not in the arcade version, which are it's the snow one, and then what's the Splinter Dojo?
Yeah,
the new edition. So that's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I remember having this and being so excited looking at the comparison between the arcade game screen and the NES game screen, and like, wow, it's like as close as they could make to the arcade. It's close enough.
It's close enough. Like in your child head, you're like, it's the same.
Are you kidding me?
But as an adult, you can look at it and go, it's not. But close enough.
Yeah. I mean, but like two extra stages, and we finally get co-op. You got to remember, like in my mind, I was playing the Ninja Turtles, the first game, the one we all know, love, loathe. But like now we got real like 2-player co-op with all 4 turtles. Like just like if I was playing at the arcade, like. My mind was exploded, like looking at this spread right here. Like, are you kidding me? I need it now, Mom. Can we go to Rent-A-Flick and rent it, please? I will do the dishes.
You never actually said the name of the rental store, dude. That's great. Rent-A-Flick is it?
Are you kidding me?
Mine were what? Campus Video, Rainbow Video. I can't remember what that other one in Amherst what it was called, but that's good. That's a good pull.
That Rent-A-Flick was around the corner. But like Farmore was the place near my mom's work, so she would like stop there and get like the great deals. That was like the 99-cent rental. That was like the spot, that was the spot.
Okay, well the data box here has it as a 2M program and 2M character memory card with an MMC3 chip, no additional work RAM, And just as a reminder, I fucking love that they're including this info for all games now. It really strums my 90s computer nerd guitar. It's great that they like give that to you every time now. The power meter comes in at 3941-434.0, and that's an 81.5% aggregate. Not too shabby. And I guess that if you need a refresher as far as those categories from we're going to cover them moving forward, that's graphics and sound first gets the 3.9, play control gets the 4.1, challenge 4.3, and then theme and fun is the last number, and that's a 4.0. And I can that's low.
And it's more impressive when I remember that this was a Nintendo game, not a Super Nintendo game. Because in my mind, all of them were Super Nintendo games after the first one.
Did you own this one? It kind of sounded like you were talking about Reading, so no. But
no, I did not own this one. No,
okay,
no.
Yeah, we didn't have it either.
I don't think so. I might have actually owned this since this was on the regular Nintendo. I might have picked this up.
Late stage acquisition.
Yeah, I might have picked it up.
Word. Well, the table setting blurb is titled "The Turtles Come Home," and it's your baby, Jay. So I think you should do the honors.
Konami's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the arcade just took a mutant module to your NES. All those righteous scenes are here, plus 2 excellent new stages. The Foot Clan foes you love to hate are back too. Not to mention the evil masterminds who would like nothing more than a snack on turtle pizza. So grab your bro for the 2-player game or challenge the Shredder alone for some mega kicks.
Wonder if that, because it's so flowery, I wonder if that was Nintendo or internal Nintendo copywriting. Good on them, because they didn't slack off on the effort there as far as making it, feel like it's in the story world on top of just telling you shit in the game, which is cool. They then do a Bodacious Bros turtle breakdown because you goddamn well better, Howie. And it's explained here that this time around, all 4 turtles have the same attack power with both their standard and special attacks, though it does claim Donatello has a slight reach advantage with the bow staff, and I think they're fucking delusional about that thing. I think there's no difference in any of the 4 turtles, which is probably my biggest gripe about this game, is that they all are just reskinnings of each other, in my opinion. But if you say so, Nintendo, if you say so. So, Jay, take your boring-ass boy Leo and whichever of Raph or Mike you want as far as we're reading these blurbs here. And the only hill I'll die on is Don. So, maybe start with Leo, and I'll do Don, and you can pick whichever the next 2 for these little blurbs here.
Leonardo carries a katana, a long, sharp sword. His special attack is a jumping slash.
Don carries a big stick. A bow. Leaping up and swinging the bow is Don's specialty. So which one are you going to take here?
Raphael,
okay.
Armed with Sai, 2 short swords with wicked prongs. Raph's special attack is to jump up and rake the Sai at his foe. And lastly, but not leastly, Mike does his thing with the nunchuckus, jumping high and swinging the blocks and chain like a whip. And as an adult, I appreciate Raph more, probably, because of his miserable, sarcastic bullshit, being so much like me. But as a kid, Mike and Don would have been the 2 for sure that I would absolutely
most pleased to.
Absolutely, same.
Yeah, same. I think it's funny that they explain the special attacks for each one too, like it's not the identical animation for all of them, just jumping and swinging. Again, great game, great everything. But as far as the turtle differences, animation, attack power, everything, it's all the same. Yeah. Which, I kind of wish they'd have tweaked a little bit, but minor gripe. The level maps are a little interesting in how they present the enemies that you encounter along the way, and it would have been, without this, there's nothing in these levels. So they got to print maps because that's just how Nintendo features work, like this. Yep. But there's nothing, there's no the pizzas, I guess, you could have denoted, but even that's kind of minor, really, in the grand scheme of things. So, figuring out a way to make these interesting and give them POIs was a good job, I think. And yeah, they kind of just highlight it, and they put they assign abbreviations to each type of character. They put enemy breakdowns, give each one an abbreviation, and then on the instances on the map, they put a X/X number. And at first I'm seeing this and I'm like, I wasn't sure what to do with that. I'm guessing the first number is how many, they don't tell you either. So I'm guessing the first number is how many spawn when playing solo versus co-op would be my best guess for the two different numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. That makes sense for sure.
That's good. Yeah, it's cool that they did that and took the time to differentiate them. And speaking of couch co-oping, Jay, should we just quit the podcast and couch co-op this right now?
I mean, done. Are you kidding me? Like this, like when we were talking about what we were jamming, like after playing Shredder's Revenge, which is great because it actually, side note, addresses your gripes about the turtles having different distance, damage.
Okay.
I can't remember what the other one is, but like each of them, it's just 3 attributes, but they're all different for each turtle. So I appreciate that. But after playing that, it reminded me like, hey, I got the Cowabunga collection. I want to go play arcade, this actual game. So, yeah, I mean, this game started off. I don't even need the map.
Just flustered in nowhere. That's why.
Like, I know all these maps. Like, let's just go.
Yeah. I mean, I know the maps too, for sure. Yeah, and that was the funny thing. I mean, even like I would play the first level, and yeah, just like the familiarity is fucking great. It is emblazoned in my nostalgia fucking category of my brain for sure. So here on the very first level, the boss tips, Rocksteady said boss, if you don't recall that, but they suggest jump kicking is the best method for dealing with them. And it's like, fucking duh. Spamming jump kick is always the answer. Refer to our recent Double Dragon episode for supporting evidence if needed. And yeah, they literally repeat themselves for every single fucking boss in the game, going through the different stages, Except, funny enough, there's the gang of foot soldiers that chuck the tires at you at the end of stage 4, which isn't really a boss, in my opinion. So yeah, it's got, again, like just like minor gripes and criticisms maybe, is that, yeah, every boss, you're doing the same thing for every boss. You're just trying to jump kick and like get the hell out of the way after you land the jump kick, and hope to not get smashed. And I would say about half the time you still do get smashed, So it's funny if you want to look at that as retaining some of the arcade-ness to it, Obviously arcade games are designed to suck your quarters, so you're not gonna be able to avoid all damage in an arcade game. It's just not gonna happen because they want another quarter out of you, So keeping that sentiment in the NES port of the arcade game was, funny if not deliberate. They include the start with 10 lives code in here, and this is kind of interesting. It's up, left, down, right, BA start, which seems like a great editorial decision until we figured out it doesn't work. You actually have to work clockwise, not counterclockwise, in the D-pad depression part of it. And yeah, I posted this on the Facebook page, and someone pointed this out. One of our Lord disciples pointed this out, and I was like, I didn't actually even try it. I just assumed it was right because it's fucking Nintendo Power, and they're the experts.
Right.
But yes, they printed the wrong one, and the kid actually, or the guy had a story about how it, like, as a kid, it was like, he remembered his mom, like his mom sitting there with him, like doing it from the mag, trying to do it for him because he couldn't get it to work. So he like went and got his mom, and his mom came in and was trying to do it and still couldn't get it to work. And like he's like, I just remember like ruining my mom's afternoon because she couldn't get it to work either. It's like fucking you don't realize how much power you have, Nintendo. You have to get shit right. There has to be fucking editorial integrity.
Checks
here.
And balances. What's going on?
Are you ruining entire afternoons?
Where's the QA department? See what you did.
Yeah, but that was a funny story to have shared. So yeah, I fired up, banged out the first stages for funsies before proceeding the mag, and yeah, dude, it's fucking great. It's really good. Hard to argue against a game episode on it, I would say.
Yes.
I don't know if you have anything else. Do you want? If you have any other soliloquies you'd like to give, since this is our biggest feature we're probably going to see on it.
No, it's fascinating to me. Like just every bit of art. Like even on pages like 20, 21, the Shogun Warrior, just the pic of Leonardo ducking from one of the Foot Clan soldiers. Like I remember this exact artwork. That's how this one is just like burned in my brain. It's just it's so fascinating to me. It's wow.
Yeah, the artwork style is cool. It's clearly not, it's clearly not Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird's art.
But it's still drawn.
Oh, but it's great. Yeah, it's fucking great. And honestly, which is crazy to say, really, because part of the whole thing with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics is like their grittiness and how they were grittier than your average Marvel or DC, particularly DC book of the time. And it's interesting to think or say, like, I think these kind of are grittier even than that, you know, and a little more, I mean, realistic is a bad way to describe it, but just, I don't know, darker kind of, you know, which is cool.
But it works. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah, great. Shogun Warrior. I don't remember him. Stone Warrior. I loved those, like the Dimension X rock dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really cool characters. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, great. Fucking great. Fucking great.
I mean, literally every arcade I went to was just like, I wanted to play this game, so being able to play it at home was just like, Mom, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm shocked to hear that you don't have like a glaring memory of like the purchasing of this game, because I feel like
no, because
it would have been something you would have been petitioning for pretty hard.
Like I said, it was so weird when I got my NES. Like I feel like I didn't have it long before the Super Nintendo came out. So there was such a short time period, you know, when I got it, right. I definitely wasn't getting like brand new games that came out at first, you know, and it was like, it wasn't really till the Super Nintendo came out where I was like really getting new games when they came out, you know, kind of a thing.
I feel that.
So everything was kind of wonky then, but I was definitely renting them. That's what I'm saying. Like I definitely rented the shit out of this game. For sure.
Word. Howard and Nestor now. Mega Man 3 is the game sidecar, and that little shit Nestor has bought the fake news on Twitter about Dr. Wily having turned over a new leaf and joined forces with Dr. Light. He then clones himself 3 times over in the form of these Mega Nestors he calls Mark 2, 3, and 4, who immediately begin attacking Howie and Nestor both. So Howie has a Mega Blaster on his right arm for some reason in this situation, and he quickly dispatches of them as Nestor tries to laugh off his shit-headedness. And maybe the most notable thing in here is a bit of dialogue from Nestor at the midpoint, where he discloses that he plays to completion a game we no longer speak of on this podcast, the Boldo Beateen sequel, and he would be a fan of that fucking NES troll, you know. So,
oh my gosh,
that is maybe the thing I took away from this most.
Love it.
Next after that is an 8-banger for Hal's Quantum Fighter, or Kabuki Quantum Fighter. They don't really use that term here, but everything you read about it now,
it's just weird.
It's Kabuki. Yeah, I don't get what that's about either. But whatever the case, I feel like I had never seen or heard of this video game in my entire fucking life. But it dropped back around this past Christmas. So Christmas of 90, it's been around since. And the program calls for hair-raising action. When Colonel Scott O'Connor is zapped into a top-secret defense supercomputer to battle a mysterious invading force, he is unprepared for the world he encounters. The mechanized silicon jungle surrounding him crawls with weird creatures. He has become a legendary Kabuki character with quantum fighting powers. In this new action program from HAL, the Kabuki hero must battle his way to the computer's core and destroy the invaders using his bare hair. Yes, you read correctly. The Kabuki hero's hair, a weapon like no other in video games, is only the beginning of the bizarre things you'll find in Quantum Fighter. And you know what a fucking supercomputer is, Jay?
It's a mainframe, bro.
It's a fucking mainframe! Yes! We are back on some mainframe shit, and there are indeed memory chips you can acquire in-game, which are not diskettes, but they are pretty fucking close. So, yeah, I was fired up when I was reading the story set up, as we have not had any good mainframe shit in quite some time. So I was excited about that. And my first question, other than where can I find the fucking mainframe, is what in tarnations is a Kabuki? When I was first reading that. And do you know what a Kabuki is, Jay?
In my mind, it was just like a traditional, like, Japanese, like, artist, some kind of specific Japanese something.
That's pretty.
I won't say fighter because I wasn't sure if they were actually fighters.
That's a pretty goddamn close guess. It is a form of traditional Japanese drama with highly stylized song, mime, and dance, now performed only by male actors using exaggerated gestures and body movements to express emotions, and including historical plays, domestic dramas, and dance pieces. And they actually have an explanation in the mag also, if you want to take that, Jay. I don't know. Do you want to read that?
Sure. Kabuki is a traditional dramatic art from Japan. It's unique to Eastern culture. A Western equivalent might be ballet or opera. The actors in the Kabuki drama wear lavish costumes, and some have huge manes of colored hair. Whether such hair would make a good weapon is uncertain. But can you imagine a game starring a quantum fighting ballet dancer?
I love the quantum. Like they're using that. I don't know, so conversationally,
right? Like, let's
like the word quantum.
Like, sure, like
yeah, the word quantum to
stuff.
me. Like the only reason I have any real grasp of what quantum means and whatever is because of it was such a huge thing in the Outer Wilds. Quantum mechanics was such a part of that game's lore. So I ended up, watching videos and stuff on it and getting a grasp of it. So yeah, in 1991, like quantum, what?
That just means futuristic to me.
Like, right, exactly. Space. That's it. Yeah, no clue. The data box has it as a 1x1 cart on memory with a MMC3 chip. The power meter is a 72% aggregate and a very uniform 3.6-ish across the board as far as the individual categories go. So this is a side-scrolling action platformer deal, and the hook is that, yes, your primary melee weapon is your blazing mane of hair. And they start this off with a breakdown of Kabuki Man's toys, as they call them. And these are the ranged attacks that you can get in the game. They become available 1x1 to you as you beat each of the 5 stages. And the stages take you through the circuitry of the fucking mainframe and are timed. So hurry your ass up and find those memory chips. And they call the bosses major virus units. I think that's kind of fun, too. Just some more lore stuff. So, yeah, I'd never fucking heard of this. I definitely never played it. You kind of looked like this was like a game you would, maybe because again your like affinity for this issue you became aware of as a child. No clue. I had no clue. And Hal's not a developer that I'm like looking to try shit out in my emulator. So I've never fucked with it.
That's why I was shocked that it was Hal, because I thought this was Sunsoft or something.
Even though we talk shit about Hal all the time, but they made Lolo, and we fucking love Lolo.
Right? That's the thing. Like, I was shocked that it was Hal for a second. I thought maybe like this was not a real version of it. But yeah, I played this as a kid, man. It was definitely a rental. It did have that Batman-esque play. Like, this was a fun platformer. Like,
fuck yeah.
I remember like this hair thing, but that's because that's why I knew about it, because I played this game as a kid, It's a good game.
Man, dude. It's like I got Shadow of the Ninja vibes, but I honestly feel like the ninja options are better. Like when I learned I could grab and hang from those little platforms
and do your
mid-air,
own big flips,
and then somersault to the next one. I was so like, and I didn't assume that I could do that. Mm-hmm. So I found it organically as I was playing. I was like, oh my god, that's great. Like you had some like cool hanging stuff in Shadow of the Ninja too, but you didn't have that option, that ninja option. So
this felt better. It feels better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hey, fire it up, and like there's an extensive prologue cinematic taking us through the story, which I thought was maybe a bit familiar, but when I got going, like no, like check that that jumble. I had turned it on before because that computer code thing where it's flying by and you see the characters and stuff as the computer, like that's really cool, and I remembered that, but I had no memory of the game at all, so I must not have given it a fair shake whenever I had first fucked with it or turned it on. But yeah, man, the controls are great, hit detection great, attack mechanics great. Like, I was jamming to the fucking music, and you're inside of a fucking mainframe the whole time. So I mean, what more could you ask for from a video game? It's just fucking great, dude. Like I took the first boss. Took me down. I got all the way to that. Took me down a few times, and then I learned how to deal with it, and then took it down. Like I could feel that progression of like learning and getting better, even in the first stage and the first boss. So, yeah, man. Like I finished that first boss, and I wanted to read the interstitial story file they gave me after that, which was like again some cool '80s wireframe computer visual shit going on, and it's kind of worded like, Mima talking about trying to use a computer. Like it's not the best, I think. Whatever, right. But cool enough, and the visuals are great. So yeah, man, I mean, I played the shit out of this game for a game up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I may have beat this game as a kid. Like I've definitely played a lot of it. It might have been one of those like, I was able to play it all the way through within the time allotted before returning it. So I don't remember that, but I know I'm super familiar. There's nothing like I'm not surprised about this.
That is the Kabuki Quantum Fighter Round 1 theme, as we now turn our attention to classified info, and there has been a tectonic shift in the landscape of this feature. They've combined the NES and Game Boy iterations into one big happy top secret family, which is whatever. No, not good or bad, I don't think, just interesting. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, to me, it kind of... I think it signals... the internal with the SNES coming, mm-hmm. like the shift from differentiating between these things, I guess, these products, like this, they have a family of video games, you know what I mean, across a range of systems, as opposed to like it being such a big difference between Nintendo and Game Boy, you know, which is, I think, an interesting macro internal change.
NES has been around for like 8-9 years now or something, you know what I mean? They know
that's a little 85, I think 85.
I thought it was 83. Either way,
it might have been Famicom, and Famicom might have been Japan, whatever.
Either way, it's been around for a while. You know, Game Boy, they expect at this point, like they're pushing Game Boy. They know SNES is coming. To your point, it's like, hey, we can't highlight the older product anymore, you know, but we definitely don't want to downplay.
And yeah, actually, that is a great point about it. Is it probably is a tool with which to be able to get around that, you know, as opposed to having to point out that, like, oh, here's our little dwindling NES coverage, you know.
Exactly.
They can get around it by just combining everything into one. Yeah, that's
like you might have a Nintendo, but you might be playing your Game Boy more, or you might be looking for to the NES. We want to keep your eyes here, not
right.
Yeah, at least that's what I would be thinking.
Yep. So they start with the TMNT Game Boy stuff there, which was a cool game. I've had that. But the first NES screenshots are for the Immortal, and this hidden secret is kind of unreal. Like I'm not even going to try to just summate it. I'm just going to read it because it's fucking a little bit batshit crazy. Busy game programmers need their morning coffee, and in this awesome dungeon quest, you can use that to your advantage. In level 4, you'll spend most of your time on a magic carpet, fly through the first room, then open the door and board the carpet again. Fly through the horizontal corridor, close to the low wall, and try to avoid traps. You won't be able to see your character since he'll be hidden by the wall, but eventually you'll find a coffee pot. Take it and continue to level 5. So you pick up this item, this coffee pot item. And after you shrink with a potion level 5, which this already sounds like this game is nuts, by the way, and enter a small door, you'll find 2 trolls. Defeat them and get a bottle and censer from the chest in the room. Drink the contents of the bottle and defeat the bats in the next room. Then move on to the red worm room. One false step and your character will be eaten alive. The censer can warn you if a worm is close by, but for this tip, don't use it. Make your way to the hole in the floor without using the censer and climb down the ladder to a corridor. You'll meet the game's programmers at the end of this corridor. They'll ask you if you have some coffee so that they can stay awake. Tell them that you do have the coffee, and they'll reward you with a very strong repelling scroll, which won't show on your item display. This spell will automatically wipe out the 2 trolls in level 6 and let you save your energy for the final challenge. So, you probably couldn't follow that. I just wanted to say it out loud anyways, because it is nuts. Yeah, that is absolutely nuts. For the fact that the game programmers are in there, like totally breaking the immersion, you know.
Go on this magical side quest to get this special coffee, and you will get like this special fourth wall breaking boon for the end of the game. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's wacky as shit. I love it. But yeah, it's crazy. I was reading that. I was like, what? Pretty cool. There is a weird soft reset thing for Dr. Mario if you're fucked and don't want to wait for the bottle to fill up. If you hit all 4 non-D-pad buttons, so like select, start, BA, simultaneously it takes you directly back to the level select screen. And that is a nice quality of life cheat. You haven't played Dr. Mario enough to maybe feel this, but like you can see you're fucked. It's just like Tetris. Sometimes you're like, oh, you can see how fucked you are from a mile away. And you're like, I don't even want to wait for these things to fall down.
That's just over.
Yeah, so let me just skip to that. So that's a cool quality of life thing they put in there. There is some White Mushroom House knowledge for SMB 3, and then a smorgasbord of Alice things. We have Mendel Palace, Conquest of the Crystal Palace, and Crystalis. And the latter, which is a side quest candidate, Crystalis, has what is also an incredibly, I think, forward-thinking quality of life secret. If you hold both A and B on controller 1 and then press A on controller 2, you can warp through. There's 12 spots in the game, I guess, that are basically kind of like fast travel points. And it's like it's not random, it's dependable. Like you move in like a 12 location order every time. So basically if you know the map well enough, you can do this to just quickly get to closer to where you want to be, you know. And again, this is just like, you know, it's fast travel a decade before it becomes even a thing, kind of, in video games. So just in a game that certainly warrants it, you know, like a big open world RPG.
You beat
like
this
that,
game, right? Before?
No, no, yeah.
Oh, why
haven't beat it?
You beat this?
I played it. I mean, I have shit to say about it for sure, but I never beat it.
Okay.
Yeah, good fun game, but certainly big and sprawling, and knowing that is really cool. It obviously, before you know the map and are developed enough as a character, you'd probably just get yourself into some shit you can't deal with doing it. But once you're later in the game and you're just trying to get shit done and check off fucking objectives, that's probably a really cool thing to know. So,
I can see that.
Cool inclusion here. And there was no other shit for classified information for me, if you had anything. Okay.
No, just some solid stuff that, like I said, I already knew from Mario 3 and other games. So.
Word. So we then move into our cover feature, a 16 banger on Star Tropics from NOA, including the fold-out map of the month as part of this. And yes, this is side quest material, has been on our to-be quest list for a while now, was a strong consideration leading into our current Phantasy Star 2 undertaking. And Jay, we all know you are real hot on it. And I've tried it. Actually, the furthest I ever got was back on the Switch online iteration of it, but not terribly far. I want to say I was in maybe chapter 3 in that playthrough, so that's not terribly far. Actually, maybe even 2, come to think of it. Looking at the maps, whatever the case, not very far. Dolphins, I think, was the one that I got stuck in before falling off of it. So you picked it up and fucked with it a little bit.
Oh, of course, man. I like the sprites. I like the music. I like all of it. So I completed the first big trial of the game, and now I'm on the chapter 2. So yeah, the fact you reminded me that there's a Switch Online version, because obviously, you know, I'm just playing it on my laptop, and now it's like, should I switch and start over? Probably not. Probably just stick with it here. But I think I got to go with
the first. Once you know what you're doing, the first thing. I mean, that octopus is not the easiest thing, I suppose, getting through that cave, but it's also clearly not the hardest. It's the first boss. So, I mean, needless to say, the quality of life on the Switch is much better. So,
yes, I'm sure.
And you know, and
being able to rewind
like,
and stuff,
RPG in particular, you lose nothing as far as like controls go or anything. So, and you have the good controllers anyway, so that's probably not a factor anyways.
Yeah. So
yeah, it was a good situation playing it on the Switch. The data box has it as a 2x2 cart with an MMC6 chip, cutting edge shit here. Also has a battery backup, as RPGs are wont to do, and the power meter is a 38334343, averaging out at a 78.5%. And that 3.3 control score is pointing at what I remember bitching about when I was playing it, like that grid-based movement that's not supposed to feel like a grid, but it inevitably does.
It's definitely gritty.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest drawback I think about playing it, is that like you don't want to feel that because of the way it looks, but you kind of can. And like, yeah, the point being, like, you're like sometimes like you're wanting to shoot. Like you get stuck shooting in between two grid things or two squares on the grid, and you're not hitting the thing you want to or whatever. It's just like it's a little.
There's no diagonal option.
It's binary, I guess, is kind of the problem. You know, the movement and attack mechanics are binary, which is not how that should feel. I don't think.
But it wasn't enough to turn me off, though. So far,
no.
So
It's a great game. Like I said, I'm 100% happy to play it one day or another. And yeah, you're a kid named Mike. That's a real-time battling with a yo-yo to try to solve the mystery of the disappearance of your famous archaeologist uncle from the tropical island you were headed to visit him on. So it's back in the primitive times where a little kid might just air travel to a tropical island to visit a relative without a parent chaperone, which I've told the story before of doing kind of myself, flying down to Florida to see my grandparents at like age 6 or some shit, which is bananas to me.
Dude, analyzing myself like as a kid at this age, like we would travel to tropical places all the time. So I loved being on beaches. So if this is like one of my formative Nintendo Power issues, I'm looking at this game like, wow, yeah, I'm like Mike. Like that's me. Let me save the day.
I can see that. Yeah. Yeah. I was definitely, I still wouldn't go I didn't like the ocean really, but I love beaches because like the collecting the shells and shit. Like I was really into that for sure. Collecting shells. And I love another thing I loved about visiting my grandparents down in Florida was the lizards. There were lizards everywhere.
Yeah.
They had this red fence in their backyard around their pool and lizards everywhere on that shit. And I would try to catch those fucking things all the time. I mean, it must have been, we must have drove because I can't imagine you could have took this on a plane. And we definitely drove down a number of times as a family to visit my grandparents. So I think I definitely brought some back. I remember having like 2 or 3 of them in a tank aquarium back in Ohio when I was little too. So I caught a few. I remember one time grabbing them and their tails fucking they will let go of their tail when you grab them by them and like and the shit grows back. And like I remember as a child just like that absolutely wrecking my reality that like the tail fell off and it didn't die and like it just like, oh my god, it blew my goddamn mind. I remember as a kid.
Dude. When we went to the Bahamas when I was little, like it was fascinating because they had curly tail lizards, like, and every other in Florida they're straight, but in the Bahamas they'd be all curly tail. You still wouldn't want to grab them, but it was like different and unique.
Those are chameleons, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think I know one of the curly tails are chameleons.
Well, if that's the case, then they're all over.
I'm sure
the
there's a
place
bunch of
in
different
Bahamas,
kinds, whatever.
But
yeah. I mean, a chameleon is a lizard; it's just a different kind of lizard. So we have that. They take us kind of step by step through the first chapter. You face off with that octopus. Octo the Huge is his name. And then you rescue a dolphin that takes you to the next chapter. And then they get into what they call the Island Adventures Atlas. And it's a map of 6 more areas in the game. So I had a ways to go, to say the least, when I fell off it for sure. But yeah, I'm down to do it. And I actually saw the next issue has more. So I think maybe, I don't know if there's more areas to map or if it's just 6. But there's definitely more like stage by stage stuff or story by story, whatever it might be in the next issue. So they're really milking this game for plenty of content in the mag. And the back of the map poster, the Island Adventures Atlas, is for Irem's Metal Storm. And this dropped this month, so let us tackle that as well. And this is another side-scrolling action platformer shooter where you're controlling a mech. And, mech, like that's not something that like story-wise gets my biscuits burning really, but Moby Games has it ranked at a 77%. That's 71st overall on the NES as far as ratings go, and that's a lot higher than I would expect a game I have no familiarity with whatsoever to have. So, I thought maybe just because it's not my genre, maybe I overlooked at the time. Did you have experience with it?
No, this game did not seem familiar to me at all.
Okay, I presume you fired it up though, yes?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Oh, you didn't. First got it on, and I didn't think it looked that great at first, but the controls seemed fine to me, and basically the crux of getting into it was kind of just like Kabuki. I found that inverted gravity mechanic where you just move to the ceiling, and I found that and I was like, oh, okay, I see what this game's about. Let's fucking go. And yeah, like a little further into the stage, even that kind of like you start seeing parallax scrolling on the backgrounds and shit, which is super impressive on the NES, Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we should probably wait till the cover because it's going to be, I think it might be the next issue actually. It's the cover game. So, wait till we get a feature on it to talk about it a little more. But I mean, as far as initial impressions go, I was pretty impressed. I don't know. Did you dig it?
It wasn't bad. It was okay. It's okay. I wasn't sure what to think about it. Like, there's definitely there's definitely a game there. Like it could be really fun. It could be really fun.
Yeah.
I did not play it long, but I was like, okay, I could be talked into playing this longer. I could also just walk away from this, like, without like
it was
really
like,
digging into it, you know.
I thought a lot about, I think that was Mickey, wasn't it? Where Mickey had that inverted gravity thing where you went in the portals in the toy world and you walked on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought about that a lot when I was playing it. And I, in thinking about that aspect of Mickey, I thought how much better this was of an implementation of that mechanic, you know? Like I'm pretty sure I remember bitching about that when we were playing Mickey, that it felt just like a gimmick that didn't really contribute anything. You know what I mean? Like you didn't even have to do it, I don't think.
You didn't have to unless you...
Right, yeah. So in this case, it was like it's like an actual core mechanic of the game, and the stages are built that way, with that in mind, rather, and that, of course, makes it more enjoyable to, like, learn when I'm supposed to be in the ceiling, when I'm supposed to be in the ground, and, like, being able to even have agency over... Like, it wasn't, even in this first stage, didn't feel railroaded. Like, there were times where I could have done it either way, and, like, there were pros and cons to each, you know what I mean? So that felt really good to me, I thought, so... Yeah, it seemed like a fucking pretty damn good game. Irem's like hit or miss as far as whether they're good. They can be really great sometimes and then really shitty some others. So I think this one falls into the former. The Game Boy Special feature comes next. We got Gremlins 2, and then the Round Ball Roundup cover bullet point is covering 3 titles. We got NBA All-Star Challenge again that we talked about a little bit last time. We have Double Dribble 5-on-5, so the Double Dribble port for the Game Boy, and then a game called In Your Face. And yeah, we hyped up that All-Star game in the last, but I had never fucked with the other two. And you're a big Double Dribble fan. Do you have anything to say about that before I even get into me playing with them?
No, I did not. I don't think I had the Double Dribble version of the Game Boy. I don't think I ever.
Yeah, I didn't even know. Yeah, I didn't even know it was on there. But seeing these and like having that fondness for All-Star Challenge and then seeing it again, like I took the time to cop the ROMs and actually play these. And yeah, dude, the first fucking. Yeah, that NBA All-Star Challenge, well, one, the music, the title track, absolute banger. Yeah, I went straight into the one-on-one thing, trying to settle the eternal fourth grade debate of Dominique versus Jordan, actually. And unfortunately for the human highlight film, I chose him in this case, and I could not figure out how to execute dunks. So fucking Air Jordan blew his ass out, which was a bummer. But I could see it was a good basketball game for sure, especially for the Game Boy. Like, you need to read the manual to get a feel for that. But like, the controls felt good, the movement. You still get a little bit of that, you know, like I've said a million times on this fucking podcast, like they just don't have a way to play defense with these simple whatever, with this simple hardware. Like you basically just stop and then they run into you and have to like go around you. It just doesn't feel like basketball defense, which is more of a give and take kind of thing, you know? And that is still present, but again, relative to most games at the 8-bit era, it felt pretty goddamn good to me. And again, on the fucking Game Boy, it looks great.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
That was cool. And then, so I did try Double Dribble, and I don't know, either something was wrong with my ROM, or it has a wild-ass control scheme that desperately requires a manual read. I couldn't even inbound the ball, dude. Like, like I would, like, either just throw it, and it would just, like, bounce to the other side of the fucking, like, all the way to the other baseline, or, like, go into some player that I was not trying to throw it at, and he would lose the ball, and like I don't even think I had control of him. Yeah, it was something was off for sure. But the presentation, like everything, the menus and what have you, looked pretty good. So maybe if you know how to play it, it's not a bad game. The other one, meh. in your face. I definitely had never heard of it, and it didn't do enough visually here in the bag to make me download it, but did fuck with the other two. The Game Boy Top 10 this month goes TMNT, Super Mario Land, Final Fantasy Legend, Tetris, Dr. Mario, the top 5, and I can respect all that, I think.
Yep.
Then we get into Taxan bringing us one I'd never seen, Magician, in an 8-banger. And this isn't dropping until March, and all indicators point to it being at the least Kill Quest territory as far as like the complexity of the game, definitely being far too much for a game episode. But it was, so again, kind of just like whenever I'm like, what the fuck is this? I don't know, I'm familiar with it, I'll go check Moby. Like, I'm not a big fan of ratings or whatever, quantifying video games and my cunty little diatribe. But if I don't know whether I want to spend the time on something that will probably take some time, I will do that as a cursory check just to get a feel for maybe where it falls on the spectrum. And it's 141, so it's not like, some bottom of the barrel. It's out of like 700 something, or maybe high 600s, I can't recall, as far as actual licensed titles that Moby might recognize. So that's not a bad place in the hierarchy, and that kind of gave me the inclination to give it a little bit of attention. The data box has it as a 1x1 with an MMC3 chip. Power meter goes 36283838 for an even keel 70% overall, and that's despite like that low play control for what they're calling an action adventure RPG was probably the scary thing about it. And I would say after getting into it, that is the problem for sure. It's like there's a lot going on story wise. From the village of Serena to Abaddon's castle, the land of Merlewood is a place for magic and magicians. Don't be surprised to meet a talking tree or a baby dragon. It's all part of the spellbound adventure created by Taxan. The story is about young Paul, an apprentice magician who one day sets off alone to rid Merlewood of Abaddon's evil. All he knows is that he must collect 4 vials to create the ultimate potion, the Bane of Abaddon. Why does he choose such a dangerous path? Perhaps it was destiny, or maybe he just had too much goat's milk that day. Or it could have been something to do with the fact that Magician, unlike most RPG adventures, allows you to proceed in just one direction. But the direction of Paul's quest is clear. The puzzles along the way are a cunning collection of smoke and mirrors, riddles, mazes, hidden chambers. Magician has as many secrets as Houdini. The magic is what it's all about. Paul must master the use of more than 30 potent spells in order to fight and fly and flee and even fall toward the final confrontation with Abaddon. They say that with magic, anything is possible. Now we believe it. And yeah, man, so did you try this? I guess maybe before I even get into my...
Yeah, I tried it, quote unquote.
So, right, yeah, and that's a good way to put it. So, yeah, it's like, there's a lot of systems in here that are fucking interesting, man. Like, for the art, like that, the box cover, I love the box cover, just like that simple pink, like it's basically what's behind this first page here, just like that really simple pink thing with the, again, we're talking about pink and how eye-catching it is, but it just says Magician up top in a cool font, and then there's a staff coming down that dominates like the bottom 3/4 of the art. So the art is cool, and the title screen art is fucking awesome. That pixel art thing that comes up when you first turn it on looks great. Like an evil baddie kind of stepping up to a magician who's scared, running away, whatever. And then a lengthy demo starts. That's honestly, like, it's more of a sales pitch than, like, normally demos are just like it's actual playing of the game. And I guess this is stuff that can happen that they show you in game, but it's more of like talking to you and explaining the mechanics that you need to know to play the game. And that's probably good because the systems are pretty fucking elaborate. Like the one that really caught my eye, learn to build your own spells and save them in your magic book. And then up above that, you can see some kind of like crafting system menu where you build spells with various ingredients, casted ingredients. So, it kind of has this like alchemy type crafting system to it that, again, talking about things like, holy shit, you never have seen that on NES at all, So that was, I saw that and I was like, holy shit, maybe there's something here that's, again, how did this not make it on my radar? This is right in my wheelhouse. But yeah, man, you get into it and like, yeah, the controls, it's honestly, it's a lot like Xanadu as far as like that side-scrolling kind of janky ass feel to the action component of it. And I mean, how far did you get? How, like what you said, you tried to play it. Like,
man. Like
no.
I went in some shops, bought some stuff, kept walking through people, not able to go in any other shops. I'm like, where am I going? What else am I doing here?
Did you get out of the town?
No, I ended up turning it off because I just kept going in every place. And I was like, what is happening? Just never mind. And I just turned it off.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so I'm like I'm doing the same thing. I'm going through each of the buildings and like I clocked like this little mini quest where, because there's a post office. One of the stores is a post office, which is its own interesting, funny thing, I think. But I found the post office, and there's nothing to really do there. And then like a little bit later, I find this hut with an old man, and he gives me a letter to mail for him. So I like go back to the post office and do that. I'm able to do it. I get some experience. I'm like, okay, so like little, fetch quests and mini objectives. That's kind of interesting for this era in particular, I think. So I did that, and then I found a couple yield shops, and there's like one of them had 8 different scrolls you can buy, ranging from 10 to 200 gold, and you start the game with 1,500. So like, I mean, immediately you're kind of like you're overwhelmed by decision opportunity here. You got to read a manual to, I think, make any sense of that. So like, and right coming out of that spell store, some brigand attacks you there in the town. Like you're not even out in the wild yet, So you got like do a battle right there. So I think I think that's the way of the developers kind of like telling you like you better get some scrolls. You'll need them to do battle at all. And it is. You have to like you have no offensive capability when you first start. And you have to buy some scrolls basically to do shit. And yeah, I was able to like figure out how to like equip one, and you're just kind of like shooting fucking dots at things, which the visual implementation of the spell was not that interesting. But I did have to like decide on one and use that to kill someone. And then I arrived at the edge of town, and there's a sign that reads wilderness. Like a signpost pointing off screen. So you go out there, and I just got absolutely fucking murked the second I got out there. So yeah, it doesn't, like there's a lot of cool, interesting systems, I think, but the actual feel of playing the game, not so great.
Yeah.
Not so great.
The minute I knew I had to like really read a manual and possibly a strategy guide, I was like, this is not for me right now.
Yeah, and it mentions the 30 number, but like if you go through like their level by level here in the 8-pager, like the first thing they put at the top of each area or whatever are like these are the spells you'll need, the essential spells.
I'm like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
there's a lot
ton
of
spells. Shit. Yeah, like a lot of buffs, shields, and shit. So yeah, it probably, if you can get going, there probably is a lot of interesting shit in it. But yeah, it's probably a pretty high emotional startup cost to get past that. Again, that's the thing too. Comparing it to Xanadu, a lot of people think highly of Xanadu. Like a lot of people have nostalgia and fondness for that game, and like, I even have I have the story of like playing with my uncle, and like so I have this nostalgia fondness for it. So when I tried to play it, like all the stuff should have been there to like been able to get past what I think are terrible controls in that game. Others apparently don't, or at least not as badly. And this was that same exact problem. So it's kind of a bummer, I think. So yeah, without nostalgia, it's probably a little tough on this one. Yeah, but interesting. Certainly, I see why they did a feature on it at least, because there's just so many things to talk about. Another Inside Nintendo Look article is next. They're calling this one Power to the Player. And this is akin to the Databox Cart Attributes column in the January issue. It's a 4-page breakdown of their power meter grading system. And first they go through and explain the 4 categories and what factors into that particular grade, which is, I think, kind of interesting. They explain roundabouts what they equate the numbers to, which is good to know maybe also. But they call 3.0 fair, 3.5 good, 4.0 very good, 4.5 is awesome. So that's kind of how they think of the numbers. Jay, do you want to give us the graphics breakdown?
Graphics should be clear and immediately understood, and they should be suited to the story or theme of the game. Castlevania 3 earns a high graphics and sound rating for its super detailed, haunting graphics.
Yeah, and they actually have a screenshot and the number that they gave that particular game in the power meter. I think that's a great, very thorough kind of just reference point to help understand what the fuck goes into it. I guess maybe I'll do challenge and lasting interest and theme and fun. I think play control is also in your wheelhouse too, so maybe handle that one as well.
Sounds good. Play control. Whether you're driving, hitting a ball, or dueling monsters, play control should be responsive and easy to understand, as it is in Mega Man 3. Appropriately, great control in Mega Man 3.
Yep, agreed. Challenge and lasting interest. Read Shadowgate keeps you interested for a long time and challenges you to perform at your best. And they gave that a 4.5 when they covered the game. And the last one's theme and fun. Is a game fun? Do all the pieces fit? Did you like it? Super Mario Bros. 3 rates high on all counts because it meets the expectations of SMB fans in all power meter categories. And then some. And that got a 4.5 in that category. So, pretty cool, I think. Pretty cool. The top of the next page is titled Meter Readings, and power meters begin life as a set of 8 numbers, not 4. For instance, graphics and sound each has its own category. Expert game players at Nintendo play the new games, 20 or more every month, and rate them using a spider web graph like the one shown below. These experts compare the newest games to each other, not to old games. So a game that scored 4.0 several years ago might rate lower today because competition is stronger than it used to be. And that is also, I think, a very interesting differentiation that they point out here. And then they have a spider graph showing how it all looks, having the 8 data points plotted out, and science is beautiful, motherfuckers. It's like, they have like the, I don't know, I'm trying to, it looks like, this is going to mean nothing to most people, but it looks like a color correction lumetri panel for film when you're color correcting film in the post process. This is how the color panel looks, and like you're trying to like keep it balanced and like not skewing too far in one direction, which again meaningless to most, but that's all I can think of when I look at that.
Oh no, this is a common graph used in Excel and stuff like data visualization for those who work in such fields. But I just love the fact that there are more metrics, like that there's 8 and they like
right they like, factor in each one.
Yeah.
That makes so much sound obvious. I love that there's the title.
Yeah, I love that there's actual science behind it, not just like, I was very concerned that it was kind of just like, the graphics are kind of this,
spitballing it.
Yeah, I appreciate this.
And I guess they don't go into it, but it would be nice to know, like, well, they must. I mean, I guess it is kind of implied specifically that, like, so yes, all their pros, however many they might have, probably each submit, you would have to assume based on how they're describing this, submit their own numerical scale, and then it gets aggregated. It would be the only possible way to do it. So yeah, it is cool that it is a little more.
There's more nuance to it. There's more details behind it.
More depth.
Like, justify your story versus your initial feels. I like that.
Then the third page, this is dedicated to explaining context needed to be factored in when weighing the games against each other, and just kind of like they mentioned, when a game came out is a factor, but they use the glut of baseball games available to show the differences in this specific context-based idea, and kind of how the market expectations at the time of those dates are major factors in the scoring. And I like how, maybe the thing I found most fun about this was how the carpet bagging RBI titles are just completely excluded. Like they just like leave those off. They don't even mention them, because Atari's pulling their shit on them. So no soup for you, unlicensed Atari. But otherwise they have a shit ton of games here. And I think it's maybe best demonstrated with the stark disparity between the 2 bases loaded installments. And, they basically give the first one, got a pretty high score. Bases Loaded 2 has a relatively low score, and it's because, like, both are probably impressive, but there's a couple years between them, and how impressive 2 is less so because we've gotten farther technically, and, there's still problems with that game.
That one.
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting, I think. The last page explains which categories for a range of genres might influence scores the most, i.e. RPGs are chiefly dependent on challenge and lasting interest, theme, fun, whereas play control is essential in action games, So they kind of explain that here. And there's a few random blurbs at the bottom. Developers will make tweaks on poor feedback sometimes, so this system can make games better. And when we get into the now playing, I think this is one of the best issues so far anyways. We haven't had that table for very long, but there's a number of titles that got low scores there that never end up getting released. So I think that actually maybe is a better way to put this, is not only does it improve titles and they go back to the drawing board, but sometimes they're like, oh God, it's so bad we can't even release it. So as much as all the bullshit we got for Nintendo, like it could have been even worse, based on if these companies had just spat the shit out even after these poor scores came in,
For sure. Like, wait a minute, what was the marketing budget going to be on that game? Oh no.
Yeah, not good.
Oh,
not good.
No.
Yeah, let's go ahead and shelve that. Yeah. Yep. And then they also mention here that this system has a huge hand also in what the magazine selects to do the features on, of course, so the scores steer, obviously the higher scores get the bigger, better features and more better placement. So it's also steering what we read here in the mag. After these messages,
we'll be right back.
Okay, so I gotta rescue my uncle, but I'm not too sure how to find him, so I can go to this island, right? But first I gotta talk to the chief, and then I gotta get some clues from a parrot, and then I'm helping these dolphins, and all the time I'm digging through graveyards and shooting zombies and blasting monsters. Then my sub cracks up on the rocks, and then the next thing I know I'm cruising inside a whale. Whoa! Oh, new game from Nintendo, man! Star Tropics! Every chapter's like another adventure, so it's like a whole slew of games in one. What's the matter with you?
That is a 1991 U.S. market commercial for Star Tropics. Keeping this app all the time. It's just a dude playing Star Tropics, hoping he can wrap things up in a conga line with tropical island natives at the end.
What could go wrong?
I was surprised to see that had a commercial. I did not expect that to have a commercial. As hard as they're pushing it, I guess it shouldn't have been. But I was just, again, it's just didn't, because of how little it made it out of that era as like a property, I just wouldn't have assumed it was ever big enough to warrant one. But
they said it. They really expected it to go big, like, and it's big on nostalgia and big like, oh wow, but like, yeah, unfortunately, there's no Star Tropics 3, 4, 5 that I'm aware of, So
there's someone's fan extended the series. You would have to think, if there's not, there's a market there for us. Nintendo will sue us. We have to find a way to not get sued, but there is a market
Of course.
First thing here in Act 3 is an 8-banger on Ultima, Quest of the Avatar. Jay, please read the table setting blurb for this next key installment in our ISOH side quest gaming lineage.
For real. Okay.
It only makes sense. It's only fitting, I think. It's only fitting that you read this.
A fantasy quest like no other awaits you in Ultima, Quest of the Avatar, FCI's second NES installment of the famous role-playing game series. Quest of the Avatar comes closest to true role-playing in that every action by your character affects his destiny, including casual conversation with strangers. Prepare to enter one of the most detailed and challenging worlds in computer role-playing, Britannia, as you begin the quest of the Avatar. I don't know. I can think of a lot better Avatar uses of that word and lexicon than here. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's okay. The data box has it as a 2M by 64K cart on the character front, which is the lowest we've seen. You don't really see lower than 1 megabit. Which is interesting. And then it has a piddly MMC1 chip, too. So FCI is wearing the absolute minimum number pieces of flare.
Have you seen their
flare
sprites?
as per usual?
Come on. They're like stick figures, some of them.
So the power meter goes 33, 34, 35, 37 for an aggregate of 69.5%. Just a C hair shy of what that article would call good that we just read. So... Not exactly glowing.
Shy of what we call good. What do we call it? Not good. That's what it is. Not good. Translation.
And they never. The interesting thing about this I think there's 8 pages on this. They never really get into any actual gameplay. Like the last page is, I think, on the final dungeon, the Abyss they call it, which is a cool name, but that's an odd choice for the only POI covered, like the end of the game. There is some shit at the beginning, and there's some shit on the mother frackin' moon gates. And there's a ton on the virtue system for your hero, which that blurb was talking about, which sounds so fucking interesting that you you answer these questions in the beginning, and they kind of like set your path as far as who your character becomes. And then as you talk to people throughout the game, the shit you say to them matters, And that, to me, that is true role-playing. So I get why they're using that language,
They're really trying to sell this as a proper game. Like, they really are. I get it. I don't agree, but I get it.
Yeah. They even mention, I think it's here or somewhere else I read, but like they give you like they tell you the flow chart, because basically those questions you answer in the beginning determine your character class, And you meet, kind of similar to Dragon Warrior, you meet pre-made characters. You don't I don't think you make your other 3 characters in this one, you like meet people out in the world that join your party that are already existing. So you truly are playing as this one person who is just accompanied by NPCs that are out in the world, you know? So who your character is and becomes is that much more important, I think. So they actually mention here like how to get, if you want a fighter or whatever the fuck character classes are called in this game, if you want a certain thing, how you have to answer the questions to get that. So you can at least like have agency over the kind of character you play if you don't want to just let it be left up to chance. So that's kind of interesting. But that's one, how it's determined, and 2, that, you know, you can kind of cheese it if you want to skip that part of it. And they talk a lot about the magic too, dude. And the magic seems to have gotten way more intricate than in Exodus. You have to, like, out in the world, you have to learn a spell's recipe, and then you take that recipe somewhere to actually learn the spell with the ingredients, you know what I mean? So that's interesting and could be very cool, I think.
But also extra steps, I don't know.
Extra steps, yes. But these RPGs are that's all they are. It's just, what are the steps? Like, in each game, the question is kind of like, what's your extra steps? You know, and are they fun and interesting? You know what I mean? You know, that's kind of what all these games are, is how do they take the math of a video game and overlay an interesting story, an interesting interactive story. You know what I mean? So,
yes. Is it fun? Is the question.
Right. Yes. And their category on theme and fun is what, a 3.7. So it's better than good, but not very good. Yeah, I don't know, man. Lots of interesting stuff here, Jay. I don't know. I don't think it should be discounted entirely. I think
no.
No.
That series has burned the bridge. The bridge has been burned.
We'll see. It's a democracy, Jay. You may have no choice. You may just have to sit in a 4-year Trump presidency, whether you like it or not. We now get Counselor's Corner. There's a little bit of dabbling in Dragon Warrior 2. Peeps want to know where the jailer key is, and then a smattering of Maniac Mansion cues are answered before they make a library push with what they state are the 4 most asked Legend of Zelda questions that Caesar, Greg, and the rest of the gameplay counselors get inundated with phone calls about. And they still get bombarded with them, they claim, and they remind us that there are 2 quests in the game and drop that Zelda naming trick to go straight to the second right at the top of the page. So that's something too. I tried that a long time ago, right when I was first starting the pod. Maybe actually when you were first starting the pod, might have been when it happened. I think I remember talking to you about it. But that's something I still have not beaten as the second quest of Zelda, and that's kind of like a check it off the list kind of thing that I still got to do. It is interesting how, unless you use a guide, of course, like the only differences are shit's harder, enemies take longer to kill, and then shit, nothing's where you think it is. So it's a fucked up way to play Zelda, basically.
I never beat Zelda either, so I'm right there with you.
You should, the first quest, dude. Oh my god, and dude, you should play that. The way to do it is that Legend of Doom or Legend of Zelda, Legend of Doom iteration. So. You haven't got that at all yet, have you? You haven't done that. Gotten that, dude? We got it. We should do it this afternoon. We should spend 5 minutes, and I can talk you through downloading the stuff that you got to do to get on your headset, dude. That VR Legend of Zelda. I was just recommending my buddy Tony was like way behind on the podcast. Apparently, he randomly texts me like a month or 2 ago, and he's like talking about some shit from an episode like 3 years ago or something. I'm like, that's where you're at? Like, why? I don't know. Whatever. Clearly people have real lives. They can listen to our stupid podcast. But it was just funny to me that he was that far behind, but still listening. You know what I mean? I guess that's the thing. It's like, it's great. I'm glad you're listening, but it's funny to me that you could even stay kind of invested and still be that far behind. He kind of qualified. He's like, it was interesting to hear, actually. I'd never heard anyone say this specifically to me about the podcast. He said that he can't, he's a little older than us. And yes, he was kind of like my uncle. He's my uncle's friend. So he's like that age, like a little older, where like Nintendo was cool and they played it in their early 20s, but they don't have like this childhood nostalgia for it. So like going back to it is not particularly, and he's very tech savvy too. So he plays modern games, all the more reason, and has a kid. So just all the more reason he doesn't have time to even think about this old shit. So that part of it, like the whole point of our podcast is kind of uninteresting to him, but he likes listening to the What We're Jamming On Now segments about current stuff and like our viewpoints on that. So it was interesting to hear that. Like the idea of someone listening to this podcast solely for our modern gaming perspectives had not even occurred to me as a possibility. So that was interesting to hear. But at any point, in any event, I was telling him about this and praising to no end the Legend of Doom deal. So yeah, dude, that's the way to do it. It is so fucking good. And I can't remember specifically why there would be a reason that you couldn't do the second quest just the same. I mean, it is a port in this weird moving into a Doom engine, so maybe it doesn't work, but that's how I should do it. I should go back and play the second quest in Legend of Doom and do it that way. Because yeah, when I tried it the first time on old OG hardware, it just kind of bleh. I guess I could also do it in that 3D Sin emulator too, and just play it 3D flat screen. So there's a lot of options. My point being, I need to do it, and I have a lot of options if I want to go back to it. But they talk a lot about that here. But yes, you got to, dude. We got it. All that, the Doom VR port, all that shit, Quakes, you got to try those, dude. You have got to try those. You've got that fucking. Also, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, dude. Holy fuck, have you tried that yet?
No.
Oh my god, dude, you got it. That you have to buy that on Steam. But
I've played so much Mike Tyson's Punch Out in my life, like I'm good with that. But like
no,
other titles,
Jay,
I'm happy to try.
You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. I actually just showed it to. I took it over to my buddy Dave's house and showed it to my buddies Danny and Dave, and they're neither VR buffs or retro heads. So they're the same age as us. They played these games. Mike Tyson's Punch Out, everyone loves that from their childhood. So like there's like an affinity there, but they weren't like, oh my god, I can't wait to try that kind of thing. And I put it on them, and like they were just like, oh my god, like I can't believe, it just blows you away. It's fucking absolutely mind blowing. You got to try that, dude. It is so fucking good, so good. That one's a little more complicated because that's the one, like the 3D Sin emulator, for it to work well. The Steam Link shit, you got to hardwire your router to your computer. I don't even know if you have that as a possibility. And depending on what your router is, it's not the easiest thing. So there might be some extra steps. But Legend of Doom is just, it'll take 5 minutes to download the app and get the WAD file, and you'll be off and running. So it's super easy to do. We know what we're really here for in Counselor's Corner, Lord Disciples. We come for the tips, but we stay for the mullet counselors. And you can summon the whole seat, but I'm only going to need the edge, because we have 2 immediate DQs in David Nixon and Eric Carlson. There's nothing even fringe mullet about their high and tight dues, and their profiles are equally as uninteresting. But we have 2 that are worth talking about here. We have Joe Lockett. He doesn't quite have a mullet, but he does have some long, wispy hair that does correlate nicely with the hobbies worth taking note of, which read hard rock, commercial art, black clothing, and Seattle nightlife. So you don't have a mullet, but party on anyways, Joe. The cornerstone of this issue, though, is inarguably one Sean McGoldrick. Sean became a GPC over a year prior to his appearance here, January of 1990. His hobbies, as his sweater over a turtleneck vibe suggest, he is in tune with the arts and the universe. He is into composing music, not even making music, but he composes it. He's a composer. He likes to sketch, he likes meditating, and he likes performing. And no further explanation of what type of performing he might partake in.
What
as
are
mentioned,
we talking about?
Art imitates life. All is a performance is how you have to interpret that, I think. His best accomplishment is completing Maniac Mansion without saving once. And for favorite game, he demonstrates how worldly he is by declaring Japan released only Earthbound as the game that really gets his taters cooking. So he's, he doesn't even have to, he plays imports. He doesn't even, he's on a whole nother level, with his Nintendo gaming. But obviously we want to know about his mullet. So his mullet, I think the best I could come up with is maybe a Paul McCartney mullet. At best. Like it's kind of wispy.
At best.
Yeah, it's kind of wispy. Not a lot of life to the business or the party, And if you look up Paul McCartney's mullet, like it's the same kind of deal. It's like he has one, but it's not. It's kind of just always been there, and he's just not. It's just kind of his hair. It's not. He doesn't have a mullet by design. It's just kind of his hair.
I feel like Like, from the side, if you weren't paying attention, you might say his name is Fran. I don't know. Like, throwing it out there.
that I told you that foreign worldly vibe. Like that's kind of again that's the sweater over a turtleneck really fucking brings that home. Like Icelandic or something, you
right?
know?
Exactly.
Despite the ultra Mickey name, McGoldrick is obviously very Irish. Players Poll follows that tough act, and grand prize this month is a trip to Chicago to experience a virtual reality war mech video game experience, FASA Chicago's Battletech Center. And we've seen this previously. It must have been a Game Pro, I would guess.
Yeah.
So they must be pumping some decent marketing dollars into it for it to be appearing here in multiple mags. And yeah, it's obviously just amazing how huge and clunky these machines are. Like they're massive, you know,
right.
Way bigger than even your most extravagant flat screen sit down racing arcade cabinets of the time. You know, they're just huge and like fully enclosed too, you know, which also is a difference from just your regular arcade cabinet. So yeah, it's just funny how, you know,
dude, this is a Battletech Center. So this is fully all about the marketing. You know what I mean? Like we got to add a bunch of stuff. We got to do this is.
Oh yeah, that's kind of cool that they like, I mean, you kind of have to because VR is such a niche thing that you have to make it an experience. Yeah, it's a whole experience. So it is kind of cool, I think, that they almost theme parked it and made it like the whole thing is a deal. You know, it's a Battletech Center. Yeah, that's worth taking note of for sure. But yeah, I just can't get past it. We were just talking about the fucking Quest. Like the fact that it just sits there behind me now on a fucking little plastic stand is an infinitely better version of what took up just so much space. Yeah, it's wild. Technology is wild. Second place is a Battletech swag bag headlined by a pretty cool looking board game of theirs. So Battletech is a brand of like a gaming brand, I think, which I did not realize. Like I thought that was just what they called this VR thing, but I think
that's what I thought too.
I think it's like they have like they show the board games. There's 3 different like. I don't know, releases, 3 different standalone board games all within the universe, you know. So I think it's like a gaming universe, which is pretty cool. You know, it probably actually I've talked before about how, you know, I mean, this has a board and it's not maybe the same as Dungeons and Dragons, but one of my fondest memories of just weird ass shit, my uncle had that top secret tabletop game that was just like Dungeons and Dragons, but set in like a top secret 80s spy, James Bondy type world, you know? So that's kind of what I thought of when I saw this, that it was like a full gaming universe that you probably have some sort of tabletop gaming, you know, whatever range with. It's kind of cool.
Man, staring at this, I feel like I had a game similar to this. I'm just like staring at it and immediately getting like this.
Well, there was those
very similar.
There was a big mech game on PCs, and I can't remember what the fuck. I think not War Mech or something. Battle. I mean, maybe it was BattleTech. But there was. I remember I couldn't get into it again. Like when we were talking about Metal Storm, like just mech. Not my. I know it's not something that piques my interest. Sci-fi stuff like that, but. There was definitely it was a huge deal, like in the Warcraft, what the fuck is that? Not Code Red, what the hell was that? What's the war real-time strategy game of that era? Space in the name, doesn't matter, whatever. But that like early to mid 90s era, there was a big war mech game that could have very well been this IP too, but I can't remember the name of it offhand. So it's possible. The meat and potatoes of this meal are next up. It's February 91's Now Playing feature, and they very plainly state at the top of this, here's a glance at a few recent releases that didn't score feature coverage. So again, these are the lesser properties, you know. So no participation trophies at Nintendo HQ. If you don't make their subjective cut, they're not going to like dance around telling you about it. So that's kind of surprising, maybe. So they start off with 6 that get semi-preferential treatment with little blurbs about them. We have Galaxy 5000, ISOH Game App alum Shadow of the Ninja that we were just talking about as a comp to Kabuki Quantum Fighter. Ski or Die, which we talked extensively about last Game Pro rather. There's Isolated Warrior, the Cryon Quest, and then North and South. So let's work through those first. Galaxy 5000 comes at us by way of Activision, both on the development and publishing front, and it's a futuristic racing game with some shooter shit going on. What'd you think? That's great. Yep. Like it does have 2-player head-to-head, which is, I was like, oh, that's cool, kind of couch co-op and shit. But the blurb bitches about it's inevitably more of a cooperative racing game, which isn't a thing, basically, than competitive, because you can't ever not be on the same screen together. So like if someone falls behind, I don't know, I wasn't playing 2-player, but I'm guessing it just like does that thing where it just pushes them up to the edge of the screen, then that obviously fucking sucks. So yeah, it's a big problem with the racers of this time. Like if they don't do it in the off-road way where the whole thing is one screen, then it's super tough to have 2-player racing,
That's why it just never worked for me until Super Nintendo's Top Gear 3000.
Yeah.
Split screen, co-op, then it was like,
Yeah, it's weird. I think that's what it does in RC Pro-Am, right? It does that thing where it just pushes you up. Does it not? But honestly, I find RC Pro-Am is fucking great, so it's just occurring to me now that to criticize this one when I love RC Pro-Am as much as I do is kind of fucking hypocritical. but yeah, even the 1-player game, like, it was fast and fun, and I mean, they give it a 71%, so that's not terrible. Like you turn it on, and like it looks pretty janky, but it did have a fun feel to the gameplay and the tone. Like when you bump into an opposing racer as you pass, there's a little "excuse me" voice sample,
Yeah,
so there's kind of like that fun thing going on as far as the vibe goes. And yeah, I mean, I was playing it, and like I felt invested in winning that first race. Like I played all the way through the first race. Like I was trying, And there was one car that was like giving me a hassle, and like I was like battling with it, and like it does have the deal where you like, there's like you got to like learn the track basically. There's like it splits off in different directions, and some are more efficient than others, So yeah, it was not. It'd be probably crazy to do a game at, but I was surprised at how much I did enjoy it.
I think maybe that's part of the issue, is that I've begun to look at these games in the vein of like, would I do a game app on it?
Right.
Yes or no? And just like, nope, not. Versus actually enjoying it and playing this one a little longer than maybe I would have, because it's not. That's why I was like, it's not bad. Like I could sit down and play it, but like for an episode, no.
Yep.
But
it's just like it is talking about this idea, unpacking this idea a little bit. They were just talking about in that tech feature about the power meter, like the context of the time when these games are happening. Mm-hmm. Like I think that also kind of applies to this podcast in the same way. Like, that the idea behind that the shit worth playing list is exactly that. Like these games that like there's just not it's not substantive enough to think about for a game episode, but that doesn't mean that a game is trash. Mm-hmm. And isn't worth. It doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it or don't ever want to play it again. So like the idea of maintaining that list, maybe to a lesser good job these days than we used to, but it's the kind of thing that like even that it's kind of fringe, because again, like if we had found this game in 1988 in the mag timeline, like yes, 100%, like this is a great racing game, and there's not a ton of them yet, but now I have RC Pro-Am, so I already have the cool game that I actually have nostalgia for, where the second player gets pushed up to the edge of the screen. Like I already have this. You shoot in that one too, like all these mechanics already existed in that. So even though this does all those fine, it's not enough of a twist to make it interesting.
But also, like, we lived through that time and we played what we found through our circumstances were the best racers at that time. So like, it didn't mean there wasn't a decent game, but it clearly wasn't better than RC Pro-Am or whatever other game is in our minds. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, I don't feel as bad about it,
I don't feel bad, no. But, you have to take into account, like, especially as we get further here. One, I already mentioned I'm kind of maybe coming off Nintendo a little bit. But two, like, the library is getting so big that things fly by that we just never would be able to.
That is true. We're
the mags can't bring them to our attention. There's just not enough time in the day, and there's too much out there already to choose from in the Toys R Us aisle. So like things fly by. That doesn't mean like that's the cool thing about this podcast though, is that we find these things that happen to. So yeah, I don't want to say just because I didn't play it as a kid doesn't mean I don't want to fucking give it a chance either. But yeah, it nonetheless is affected by the timeline, you know. And it's hard to give these things the true time of day. Natsume's Shadow the Ninja is great fun for ninja fans, they say. And, you know, who the fuck isn't into ninja stuff? It gets an even Steven 70%. And I think that's low, given the dope-ass couch co-op and Elite NES controls. But, yeah, before we even get into the ninja stuff, but whatever. I guess, you know, you're entitled to your opinion, Nintendo. Ultra Ski or Die, which we talked, like I said, mentioned about in the last Game Pro, gets a 65%. And it's not as scathing of a review as whatever the fuck the Game Pro dick gave it, but it's still apprehension, I think. They mentioned play control is smooth, but it will take some practice to master the downhill and ski jump. And in my opinion, I think it should. I think those mini games should have to take practice to get good at. So, again, I don't know if that's a criticism, as long as you can master them. Like, I think the important differentiation is it possible to master them through practice? And as long as that's the case, then that's a good thing, I think. So, tomato, perhaps. Isolated Warrior comes cruising our way via a corporate abomination calling themselves NTV International Corporation VAP Inc. And the developer isn't much better. It's KID. You can maybe at least abbreviate that to KID, but that's KID Corp. And Moby calls it an isometric diagonal scrolling action shooter set in a post-apocalyptic futuristic world. And all this verbal vomit makes me want to take a nap, but the Nintendo Power says the character action is diagonal and well executed, and awards a 69%. I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would, dude. Did you play this?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, you know, auto-scrolly type of diagonal little shooter, but yeah. I mean, I'm shooting stuff, so like if Mom rented this for me, all right, let's roll. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I looked at that screenshot in the mag, and I was 100% certain I would hate this game. Yeah, but dude, I got to the first boss, got murked by him a couple of times, and in game, you know, so whatever. But like there was a clear power up progression throughout the level. Controls were solid. There was variety to those power ups too, and some pretty cool pixel art in the opening. And dude, I'm playing through that first stage, and they have the like arcade style second player can jump in at any time information in the HUD there. Uh-huh. So I'm looking at this thinking that it's like a 2-player cooperative. I'm like, whoa, dude, like this might be really great as a 2-player deal, but it is a controller pass 2-player situation. So yeah. So like, yeah, absolute suck city, unfortunately. I'm moving on.
Not what we want.
But yep, but could have been. If it would have been a co-op game, I think I might be pushing this in a few minutes. But without that, nah. Bitch-ass Vic Tokai is responsible for the Cryon Quest, a side-scrolling action platformer where you control a broom-toting witch saving Earth from robot invaders in the year 1999. And dude, I fucking hate this company. I fucking hate this company. This company is the pits, dude. They give it a 68.5%, you know, which is not bottom of the barrel or anything. And the opening cinematic is like this really weird and kind of interesting maybe mashup of like there's that shot of New York that's like really gritty and realistic, kind of Batman-y almost. And then they cut to this cartoony Japanese manga shit that, you know, I don't like that shit, but the idea of it kind of in this juxtaposing world was interesting to me. So like I see Vic Tokai, I'm like irritated that it even exists. I hear that story set up and I see the key art, which is just like a very, I don't know, like fairy tale witch thing, you know? So I'm like, oh God, how bad is this going to fucking be? And I turn the game on. This is fucking Mega Man. Am I batshit insane or is this fucking Mega Man? Like, it is fucking Mega Man. It feels like Mega Man. It looks like Mega Man. It controls like Mega Man. It is, the enemy design little robots are fucking Mega Man. Like, it's fucking Vic Tokai stole Mega Man. Yeah. Which is insane.
They certainly tried. They certainly tried.
Oh my God, dude. And like, I felt so validated and seen when unprompted. I posted some shit saying I just hate Vic Tokai. And the first comment on it on Facebook was, they stole Mega Man, basically. I was like, oh my God, I feel so seen. Like, holy shit. That wasn't in my imagination. Like, oh my God. Yeah, just unbelievable ripoff.
Like, let's just put a witch hat on it. Like, that doesn't make it not Mega Man. If you put a
right, yeah. Like, yeah, holy shit. I mean, dude, it's so the same. And like, yeah, I don't just say this like, it is not in passing at all, which, hence, again, the first comment being, but like, in my mind, they had to have just taken the code and switched the sprite. Like switched multiple sprites, and not even, like I said, with the enemies, they're still like little robots and shit. So they're not exactly Mega Man enemies, but they look damn close, Obviously, it's a bigger switch for the hero sprite being a witch, but dude, yeah, just, oh my God, it looked and felt so much like it.
I have to tell you.
Are you mobilizing troops about this yet?
I had to Google it. Just to make sure my ROM wasn't like, some weird fan-made hacky
homebrew
thing. Yeah, I was
shit,
like, hold on. Let me just take a look at what that is definitely, but that's the game. Yeah, it's a crime. It's a crime against humanity.
Yeah. Absolutely nuts, dude. I could not fucking believe.
So like, how close can we go to straight up ripping off like this iconic IP and profit?
I can't believe Nintendo. How did Nintendo, like Capcom's a close ally at this point. Like they're just did Mega Man 3 as a cover feature. So like, how could you not see this and be like, guys, you got to be kidding me?
Like it even says in here, the look and feel is reminiscent of the Mega Man series. That's all they could say without like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wild. That kind of surprise. Definitely. And I'd never heard of that or seen it or anything. And like the idea, that's kind of one of those things too. It's so, maybe that's part of the shock is that it's so strikingly a ripoff that I can't believe I haven't, like there isn't internetery about it. There aren't memes galore about that kind of thing in the retro gaming space. Is very shocking to me because it is just so blatant. Yeah. North and South is a Civil War strategy joint from Kemco Seika, so it's slick as fuck on presentation and graphics and music and even gameplay, but it's still a Civ-like turn-based strategy game on the NES, and we just can't be having any of that at this advanced stage of our lives, unfortunately. It does get a 66%, and that's probably justified. Like I said, if you fire it up, like the presentation is off the charts good. Like it looks fucking fantastic. But I'm not going to move a cursor around and pick fucking things and units and shit on an NES controller. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. And from there, we have to wade into the deep end of the rest of this list here. And, they don't even warrant a couple of paragraphs about them. So that tells you the quality of most of them. The first one that caught my eye, and not only because it's right at the tippy top of the list, but it's fucking FCI. Another developer I want to burn in hell, probably, in a general sense. But they are bringing us the first Advanced Dungeons & Dragons RPG for the system, which, as you might assume, Jay, I was like, oh, baby! They give it a very FCI-rific 55% on the power meter, which, needless to say, is a bummer. But I saw that 1.9 in play control, dragging it down, and it's RPG, So I'm thinking maybe kind of sort of it's not control-dependent, and it could still be something there worth, like, at least being aware of.
You're wanting to like it.
Yes, wanting to. And
not
that play control. Yeah, not the play control is like a no big fucking deal category or anything. But like I thought maybe it wasn't important for an RPG, so maybe we could get around it. But oh my God, is this an abomination? Did you try it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Oh my God. It is fucking horrendous. Like, so you start the game, you're forced to pick 8 characters, which is an absurdly sized party. Yes, you have to pick 8 characters. Like it's actually a pretty good, like, they're pre-made characters, so you're not like rolling 8 characters. Thank God, that would be insane, even insaner, I guess, just to say. But you're picking these pre-made characters just from sprites and stuff, and like picking classes basically. And once you get through that, you start on this screen, and I couldn't even get off the first screen. There's a door. You start in between a doorway up and then a pathway or a doorway. It kind of has that like Friday the 13th or Rambo or Platoon kind of deal where it's just like a path leading down, and maybe you might not even notice that, but it has that going up and down. So I think you can go up or down theoretically, immediately from the place you start. But hitting up or down on the control pad did nothing. I hit all the other buttons, nothing. I couldn't go through the fucking doors. So I don't know. I wasn't able to get off this screen. And the only other thing to do on this first stage or this first screen is there's a pit to the right. So I posted the video of literally just sending all 8 characters right in a row into the pit to the death because that's the only thing I could figure out to do. That's what you have to do if you figure out FCI as your RPG maker is just mass suicide. So yeah, absolutely terrible. And I was so bummed out because I obviously want AD&D to be cool, but not the case. I figure we can just oscillate back and forth between a few of our notables here if there was anything. Was there something you had here that caught your eye and you fucked with and want to talk about either good or bad?
I mean, the only thing, I skipped a lot of these. I mean, a lot of these, on one hand, are the games that we played earlier in the magazine, so that's a good one. But
sure, right.
I mean,
the good ones, basically.
The good ones, yeah. I mean, I played Wayne Gretzky's Hockey, and that one's still, I still think that's a decent game. Like, it's not like one of my favorite games, you know. So the rating is, but it's a decent, like, fun if you don't have Blades of Steel or something like that.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think that was in the last Game Pro. That's the Bethesda one. That's the Bethesda hockey game. I think their second game ever or whatever. But yeah, that opening cinematic dope. The game, yeah, lot to be desired, I think, as far as the game goes. I just watched The Hunt for Red October.
Oh my gosh.
Have you ever seen that movie?
As a kid, yeah. I didn't think I fully understood it, but
I was just saying, that's insane that you watched that as a kid. I at least had the foresight as a child that I knew I wouldn't be able to get into that. So yeah, I'd never watched it. And it's funny that I just watched it. I just saw the Retroists just did a podcast on. There was like, you know, the way things work now, technology. This may have got me thinking. When I saw the Retroists did a podcast on it, and I just watched the movie and I'm not sure why exactly it got onto my radar. Someone else, I think I can't remember what.
Maybe you
got on my radar somehow.
Magazine, like.
No, I don't think it was that yet because I didn't even know this was going to be on the list. There's no mention of this game until you get to this list. So I just did.
You watched it independently, separately of this,
right? Yeah, like I said, something else got me on it. So like, it got me thinking about the way shit works now. You know, like everything's digital and like you kind of can't see the hand of the invisible market, hand of the market necessarily. So like, you know. The fact that I wanted to watch it was on HBO that I watched it, so that means it's on HBO's radar for some reason or another. So like, I feel like what I'm getting at here is like, I think that happens a lot these days where like, you know, there's some sort of like some fucking asshole at some company goes, let's push let's make some money off Hunt for Red October this month. And they like do some kind of marketing that gets it onto platforms, fucking front pages and like percolates into other forms of media and gets in front of people's eyes, and then people start watching it and then talking about it like, oh yeah, I fucking haven't seen that movie in forever or never watched it either, and the person who they know watches it, and like I feel like that probably happens a lot these days, you know.
I'm sure.
That's kind of interesting because that's obviously something that's only capable in the technology landscape we're in, where everyone is just so interconnected, you know what I mean?
Well, I feel like
and there's so much that you can't track it.
Courtney and I had this discussion about Netflix the other day because her like top 10 list included some shit that was like, why would that be top 10 right now? Like what? Like this is not a new released movie. It was released in like, I don't know, 2011 or something. And we're like, there's nothing in the news that I'm aware of that would like clearly somebody's like, yeah, we're marketing this movie. Like, for whatever reason.
First question I have in response to that is, do you guys do a good job of policing the kids' access to your algorithms?
Oh, of
your
course.
individual accounts.
Of course.
Yeah,
they got their own separate.
Do you really police that hard? Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that would honestly, I would be such a Nazi about that. If I had a kid, I'd like, do not fucking. I am not.
You're not touching.
Fuck up my
absolutely no.
Yeah, I do not want fucking Bluey the dog replacing shit I actually want to see. You're not fucking my life up that way.
No, like when we first had Netflix, obviously, you know, when it evolved from disc, you know, and we only had one account, and it was just like. Everything was all together. It was like
nightmare.
The minute we could be separated, it was like, "Yep, let's do that."
Yeah, Amy watching fucking reality shows and shit. I'll fucking jump off the roof if that fucking shit started being suggested to me. Because I do police it so hard. The flip side problem of this is if you police it hard and you see something in your recommendations that you're like. You feel embarrassed or like what, you know, what am I doing wrong.
Why is that the recommendation?
Yeah, why is that being recommended to me? Like, I don't want to respect that thing. And if I'm doing something that puts me in that demographic, I need to change as a human being.
I thankfully have not had that experience. I have had the opposite or a different one where a lot of my stuff is just mainly like a block of action type of fantasy sci-fi stuff that like Courtney and I watched together, and like it doesn't really deviate outside
too
of like
hyper focused.
Yeah, I'm just like, what is it? Like, show me something. And then I realized a lot of the things that over time we have both liked, we've ended up watching on her profile. So like I look at her profile, I was like, oh, you got all the good stuff. Like I gotta like do some different stuff on my specific profile because it's been too locked down. You know, where we're only watching this stuff.
Got to nurture this more.
Yeah.
I need to nurture this child a little better. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. Yeah, it plays into that whole, the biggest problem with things being the format they're in, the paralysis of just, it's such a, I was reading some sort of study and like the percentage of people who like answered some study about what they watch on Netflix, the answer being like, when you ask me that question, what I think of most is how frequently I turn it on, flip through the menu for 20 minutes, and don't watch anything. Like the paralysis of just too many options and not enough direction, whereas obviously just flipping through channels, you just kind of you get forced shit and be like, oh, this will do. I'm tired of this and I can just stop here. But you have to make a selection now, and that can be paralyzing. Yeah. Well, yeah, I watched this, dude, and I don't know. I watched the whole thing. I didn't turn it off. And I was, I guess, interested throughout. But, like, what a crazy movie. It's such an interesting, I don't know. Obviously fueled by the Cold War hysteria of, that's still very prominent at that time is a huge factor in that. But just such an interesting choice. Like, the movie, which I thought I was fucking losing my shit, dude. So the movie starts and because it's on a Soviet sub, which fucking Sean Connery is playing the fucking like admiral or whatever on, which is whatever. I think there's like some mild justification for why his not German ass is in charge of it. I can't recall what it is. He's like something born somewhere else or something, whatever. But it's still very jarring for him to be supposedly a German fucking sub admiral. But the first 20 minutes of the movie, the whole German sub is speaking in German with subtitles, which, not excited about to begin with, but whatever. It's in the story world. Fine. And then like something happens in the first act, dude. And like, I had to go Google it because I didn't believe, I thought I was losing my shit. I thought I was losing my mind. Like, because I wasn't paying close enough attention. I didn't like see it, or I didn't notice it immediately when it clicked over, but it clicks over to, they all speak English. And it's not like they're all speaking English within the story now. They're just speaking English, so you can stop reading subtitles. Like they do something in the movie. There's like something happens, and it just stops. And like they like thought that there was enough of justification in this moment for the change, the creative choice, for them to start speaking English, but still be supposedly German. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you just don't have to read it anymore. And like as the audience member, it was just the most insane movie filmmaking idea I've ever seen. Like it was just so crazy to me that they did that and like just rode with it with like, I don't know, no further explanation. Like, I don't know, sitting in a theater and like, again, like, there's so much shit that's come out, again, thinking about things within the context of when they happen. Like, obviously the medium of filmmaking has evolved immensely since 1991. So now crazy, wackier, more creative things happen and you're more predisposed to be able to roll with them. In 1991, sitting in a theater watching Hunt for Red October starring fucking Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin, like, I am not ready for this avant-garde filmmaking choice. You know what I mean? So it's just such a fucking insane choice, I thought. But that was the thing about the movie, man, that fucking blew me away the most. The actual story is also kind of interesting. The idea of a sub being, I didn't even know this. I had no idea. It's based on a true story, supposedly, that there was a sub off the coast of the Atlantic seaboard that we weren't able to track. That was a German submarine that was nuclear enabled. So basically, it's the idea of the Cuban Missile Crisis, of having missiles that close, but we don't even know. We don't even know they're there. You know what I mean? So it was like the technology was like they came up with a new engine that allowed them to propel themselves below water silently, and sonar could no longer pick it up. You know,
That's crazy.
Yep. So interesting story, but crazy film. Anyways, something that big, like that, a Hollywood IP that big, that gets no mention whatsoever in the mag up to this point is obviously highly alarming.
It's a bad game. It's a shit game, mate.
It's terrible. So you did try it?
No, absolutely not. I had no affinity for the movie or the game or anything, so I didn't.
I did try it, dude, just out of curiosity because of the low score and, like I said, being a huge deal. Like, yeah, the best thing about it is probably that what's behind me right now, the Paramount Studios Stars Over the Mountain logo card in the beginning. Like, the time they took the time to do that and do like a really good pixel art version of it was funny to me. But dude, yeah, it's like the game starts out of nowhere. Like it doesn't, you don't like have a title screen where you like hit start, begin the game, and like maybe choose some options or whatever. It's just like the game just starts out of fucking nowhere, and you're playing a really, really bad side-scrolling submarine shooter game. Like it reminded me
Yes and no.
of honestly a worse version of the below water sequences of Jaws, which Jaws is interesting. One, I said it's not as bad, and two, like I said, the economic version or economic shit about like buying the shells and what have you was not that bad. So that game was at least playable. This one is not.
Yeah, there are certain properties that I remember vividly as a kid, and I know not to play them. This is one of them.
That's fair. In this list, the only other thing I had was they kind of lowballed the Punisher with 55%.
Dude, I was just going to say that. Like, this is target practice, and this is not a bad game. And this one I remembered. So, definitely better than freaking Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I didn't think about the actual. I mean, it's 0.5% less, I suppose. But, yes, the Punisher is better than 0.5% better than fucking Hunt for Red October. There's no questioning that for sure. So, yeah, I'm surprised. I was very surprised to see it gave it that low of a score. We get the top 30 now. The top 10 goes SMB 3, Final Fantasy, NES Play Action Football, which is at 3. Like, I don't believe you. That was kind of crazy. A little wild. Mega Man 2, Castlevania 3, Crystalis, Dr. Mario, TMNT 2, Tetris, and The Legend of Zelda is still rocking and rolling up here at number 10 to round it out. As far as Game Up alums, in the back 20, we have TMNT 1 at 11, SMB 2 at 16, Fester's Quest at 24, Batman at 27, and then DW2 is holding down at 17 on the side quest tip. So plenty of representation from our back catalog in here. And they got Solstice at 29, keeping your dream alive, Jay.
Coming in. The people have spoken.
Yes. Crazy to me, but whatever. Celebrity Profile is a couple of role players for the Showtime LA Lakers, Vlade Divac and AC Green. It's mostly focusing on Vlade and how he first discovered his NES goodness. There were some hurdles to it, being that he's Yugoslavian, he speaks Serbo-Croatian, and all the instructions are in English. So when he first encountered one up in Canada, he had a little bit of a difficulty figuring it out, but because of the pictures in the manual for Super Mario Brothers, he was able to sort through it. And he loves it so much now that he was humming the music in the interview, they say. So he's a huge fan. And AC is only a sidecar here once Vlade starts talking about playing Super Spike V-Ball with him. So it's not, AC is not really getting much love here. It's just fucking to play.
Right. He's just like, hey, I play with my friend. I play with my teammate. Like, great.
Yeah. Got it. They also talk about a range of acting opportunities he's already had since getting to LA, a film called Autobahn, where he and his wife played car dealers, some Hanna-Barbera TV specials, Wake, Rattle, and Roll. I never heard of that as far as TV specials go, but he also did a Flintstones anniversary special, which of course everyone is familiar with. And then he did a shaving commercial.
Man Yugoslavian and very sensitive Laker brother Vlade Divac looks a whole lot better now because he just shaved off his beard with a new Chic Slim Twin Plus with aloe.
How'd it go, Vlade?
Nema problema. Was the blade narrowing up?
Nema problema. How do you like the new aloe comfort strip? I'm no longer irritating.
Try the new Slim Twin Plus with aloe. It reaches every place on every sensitive face.
So now making good like me face?
Problema, Vlade. Big problema.
From Chic.
The internet is undefeated as far as being able to give you anything you want with the slightest bit of searching. It's pretty funny. He's like he wraps it up. That wrapping it up with like, it wraps up. He says something about like American girls liking him now that he's shaved or something. And again, it's just like, would never be, they would just never make it now. Just would never happen. Vlade, I don't know. Vlade was big because Vlade was drafted in 90, I think. And it was like a big deal. Like I remember his rookie cards being a big deal. Like I can picture his 1990 Hoops rookie card and with those 3 stars and shit, you know. So Vlade was a big deal in that, like, in my kind of, I don't know, infantile NBA interest stages for sure.
Yep.
And that was he was also kind of, because he kind of had to take the torch when Magic retired out of nowhere. It kind of became Vlade was like the poster boy for the Lakers, which are obviously a big marketable team. So
obviously
that
tried
never,
to be Jordan's nemesis, but clearly failed. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just never sat right with me because I don't think he was ever that good. You know what I mean? I feel like they tried too hard with that.
It was also newer at the time. It was like, oh, European player, like, oh, so good, you know.
That's true too. That was a new idea, bringing over the Eastern European players and shit was kind of a new deal. NES Achievers then steers us into an obscure Ohio geography lesson, we hope. So for OH Brethren here, we have DJ Carter finishing up Ninja Gaiden 2 from Mount Vernon. And that's definitely not a bad one. But I saw it and I was like, have we done that before? And that was the first time I've ever had that thought. And I thought that was funny that, like, we've done so many of these that I can't remember which ones we've done. Was a funny realization to me, you know.
But also Mount Vernon, Ohio is not a new place. Like, we had...
Well, you were from Columbus.
Yeah.
I didn't know where that was. I was in Columbus when I dated this girl ever so briefly from Mount Vernon. And that's the only time, like, I had never heard of it in my life.
Oh, I'm talking about like schools, like playing against them, having sports.
Yeah, it's super close to C-Bus,
yeah.
but it's far enough outside where you're not going to go to it. It's not a destination. So yeah, like until I dated her, and that might have been, I think that was my sophomore year. I want to say, like, I'd never even heard of Mount Vernon, so it definitely qualified to me as insignificant. But yeah, I'm sure a Columbus kid probably had more familiarity with it. Then we have Chief Brendel in Trenton. He finished up Super Mario Bros. 3. Big ups to Chief for that. Fred Comparato in Warren has the third best Tetris score of the month, a bit over 465K. We have Brian Hartlob in Sandusky bringing up the rear on the Game Boy Tetris leaderboard. He has 102K and some change. And that's home of Cedar Point. Get to the point! And lastly, we have Raymond Stollard finishing Tombs and Treasure in C-Bus! Were you hammering Omo cream pies with Raymond when he took this down, Jay? Were you there when this happened? Didn't know Raymond Stollard?
No, I did not know Raymond.
No,
but much
shocking.
respect to him.
Shocking. Well, out of those options, I should say, Sandusky wasn't the most obscure. There were a couple of Mount Vernon was a little smaller, and maybe Trenton was the other one that was also a little smaller. But it was the most interesting by far. The others didn't really have shit to say about them, and that is not solely because of the point. The area was an early... I'm not even going to ask you where it is because I assume you do know where it is, right?
Yes.
Sandusky? Okay, yes.
Of course.
You've been to Cedar Point, I presume?
Obviously.
Okay. Not obviously.
Come on. Come on. How can you grow up and
at first
have gone to Cedar Point multiple times?
When I was writing the notes down, like, I first wrote the question, or the statement maybe even here, that I was going to say, obviously you've been there. But then I was like, well, maybe not, man. Columbus is 2 hours away. Maybe you go to Kings Island instead down in Cincinnati. Maybe there's a lot of reasons. Like 2 hours is not a short trip to take a whole tribe to, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have been to Kings Island more times, for sure. But yeah, I definitely have been there. Like,
okay.
That's
good. I mean, dude, it was like, might not even an hour from where I was. So we used to go all the fucking time. Nice. And like, the idea that we'll get to Cedar Point, I guess. Let's slow down here. The area of Sandusky was an early major fur trading hub and was incorporated in 1824. It would become the center of Ohio's wine industry in the 1800s, and it was a major conduit on the Underground Railroad, given the proximity to Canada just across the Lake Erie there. There was a lot of manufacturing and quarrying industry that led to its growth, but today it's mostly a tourism and fishing-driven economy. The population topped out at 32K in the 70s, and then the 2020 census had it at 25-ish K. So yeah, Cedar Point is the most interesting thing there by far. It is America's second oldest amusement park, which I actually did not know, and is affectionately known as America's Roller Coast. It is the only park in the world with 6 coasters that have 200-plus foot heights to them, and then 3 of those, the Magnum XL 200, the Millennium Force, and the Top Thrill Dragster, all set the world record for coaster height at the time of their debut. So they've had 3 world record setters.
Oh, yeah. That's why we had to go there. It was like, yeah, we can go to, freaking Kings Island over and over, but like when we're ready, we got to go to Cedar Point. When you're ready to step up, we got to go there.
Again, yeah, I mean, I growing up, I would never even think to want to go anywhere else because what's the point? It's not going to be anywhere near as good. And even as an adult, like, all those years in New York, dude, like, every now and again it would come up, maybe want to go to Six Flags in Jersey. I'm like, I'm going to be disgusted. Like, I don't even know what they have over there, but I know it is pathetic compared to Cedar Point. You know what I mean? And like, I said before on here before too, I think, but like, I love how Cedar Point is just, I mean, yes, they theme the rides, but like, they don't give a fuck about, it's just roller coasters. They don't like, it's not like gardens and like all this bullshit. It is just like this tiny little peninsula, and they pack as much coaster content as they can on that little peninsula as is physically possible, and they like literally, I mean, it doesn't seem like they're doing it quite as often anymore, but like in its heyday, when we were growing up, they were in a cycle where they were knocking down an old roller coaster every year and building what seemed to me like
they got a new one, and it was like
the biggest, tallest, fastest roller coaster.
They got this new one that goes upside down and backwards and all this. It's like, what?
Yeah, they were really cooking there in the 90s. So I mean, mid to late 90s. So yeah, man, it just was like everything to me. And like the idea of going, my whole life, the idea of going anywhere else has always been kind of like, why bother? Like it's not gonna live up to Cedar Point. Why bother?
I mean, that's the funny thing for me, because I've traveled so much, like in addition to going to Kings Island and stuff, like I would go to Busch Gardens and Six Flags and stuff around the country, and each place would have its, nice, cool things or its fun ride, but it was always like
coaster.
It's
a
ride,
cool and
different.
Singular.
Yeah,
Busch
cool
Gardens down in
but
Tampa.
it's not the coasters. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not.
Not even fucking close. Yeah, Busch Gardens was one down in Tampa, and like I said, my grandparents lived in Florida a lot of my childhood, so I remember going to that in like my early teens after I had. Because when I first started going to Cedar Point, like around 9 or 10, I was too scared to ride the coasters. When I first started going, like I remember refusing to get on them and like riding there was a kiddie, I forget what it was called, but there was like a kiddie version of the Magnum, and it was just like the most bitch ass roller coaster ever. It was like just so pathetic. But I remember riding that a bunch when I would go there and like refusing to get on the bigger ones. And then the first time, like the turning point was like, because it was the same coaster, just a different name. Mm-hmm. I actually want to credit my dad with this. I want to say it was MIKE maybe that credited me that I would credit for convincing me to ride the Magnum. And holy fuck, dude! Just like, just life altering. I remember just like that was when it was. I don't know if the Millennium Force had come out yet. No, I don't think so, because I remember going to the Millennium Force later, and like opening day, I remember going to the Millennium Force debut. But I remember it was old enough when I made this life choice where I remember, dude, just me and Jab, I think, just getting off the ride and just running back around and getting right back on it. And it was so not busy that we could do that. Like there was just no wait, and just riding it over and over and over again. Like, and this was like the second, you figure like I've never ridden a roller coaster before. I ride it for the first time. You figure you need a moment to decompress or something. But no, I was just like, oh my God, give that to me again. And just like riding it multiple times in a row, So yeah, just so fucking such a good memory.
That was me with the Vortex at freaking Kings Island. Because the Vortex was like the newer, like upgraded one. You had the Beast, which was like the old wooden one. And
I remember hearing about the Beast, yeah.
And so, like,
I don't
you
think I've
ride
ever
that.
actually been to Kings Island.
See, oh my gosh, so many like school trips and stuff like that. So you'd ride that, and they'd be like, "All right, that was scary."
That's how the Magnum was. The Magnum had knocked the shit out of you too. Yeah, not good.
But Vortex was so much better because it was like the newer, nicer, and I was like, "Oh, like I love this." Like, so Cedar Point has more of these. Oh yeah, let's go there then next time. Let's just do all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah. What I was getting at there though is so. I had that experience and like switched over to the big coasters and had been to Cedar Point. And I remember going down to visit my grandparents at Busch Gardens, and I remember they had 3 what you could even maybe consider real roller coasters. And 2 of them were like, they weren't the kiddie Magnum, but they were fucking close, like really pathetic short coasters. And they had one that was like a real sustained roller coaster with a big hill and actually like a couple of minutes to go after that. And I just remember, like, you can't be a shithead to your grandparents when they have you're out taking you to a fucking amusement park. But like, I remember thinking just like, oh my God, this is so pathetic. Take me back. I got to get back to Ohio and go to Cedar Point instead. Yeah, it was so disappointing. Everything else is so disappointing.
That's crazy.
I haven't been, and probably, when was the last time you were there? Cedar Point.
Dude,
It's been too long, yeah.
Like 20 maybe? No, because I didn't go in college. I had to be like 18 or something.
Oh my God.
I feel like, I don't think
I've been there
gone
since that.
then. Yeah.
I've been back. I want to say the last time I was there was maybe 2011 or 12. So it's been a little over a decade, I think, which is, a shortcoming that I badly need to rectify. But we've actually talked about doing that as a trip. Going back to, she's never met Jab. Amy's never met Jab, which is hilarious. She kind of half-assed, doesn't believe he exists.
Well, it makes sense. He has no socials or anything. It's like, you're just making this guy up. Like,
right. Yeah. But yeah, I got to do that. Got to go back. And they, when I went last, I think that they had just released. Oh, what the fuck? I can't even think what it's called now. It was the one after the Top Thrill Dragster, and it was just like this thing that like shoots you. It didn't really have like a high hill. It just kind of like shot you.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I don't remember what it's called, but I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're like, I remember like, do I just lay my neck back and just, is that the best way to go for this?
Yeah. So, I don't know which ones they've debuted, but you have to assume there's been something in the last decade. So there's got to be some wild shit. I wonder if I can still handle it. Like,
right? I don't know.
I mean, I'm like, are you like, I'm like first car, like I'm terrified of heights too. So it's hilarious to me that I got to this point in my life, but like, yeah, I mean, when I was going there hardcore, I am waiting for the first car every time. Hands up, let's fucking go, which is, I think, so counter to everything in my personality. On the notable peeps front for Sandusky, there is a long list of accomplished individuals, but there's no one who really had me like, no shit. There was really no true famous people. John Gruden, I guess, was probably the most notable, but even that, I feel like, might just be that I spend far too much emotional bandwidth on sports. I don't feel like most people know who John Gruden is.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that is this month's Ohio Geography lesson, brought to you by your mom. Pack watch now. The big dogs here are Adventure Island 2, Double Dragon 3, SimCity, and a ho-hum IP that just never goes away, Star Wars. I wasn't even aware there was a single NES release in that wheelhouse. Apparently there's 2 hitting later in 91 via GVC, the VCR manufacturer, which is not a good sign. But they have Star Wars in October, which is a port of a Japan release a few years back of that same game, I think. And then there is a sequel, Empire Strikes Back, that hits in December. And I'm sure they're just playing Dynamite, but do you have, you're a Star Wars guy, do you have anything for these as far as looking forward to them?
So I didn't jump in purposely because I knew whatever I found, like, we couldn't play it yet, but I was startled at first, but now I have recollections of playing an old Star Wars game. So now I'm like, I didn't follow the rabbit hole because I'm like, I'm going to wait because what I remember is a very, very old game. So we'll see.
It looks like just a side-scrolling action deal, which is kind of scary because, the only Star Wars games I've ever enjoyed have been more about like the ships and shit, like some of those early flight simmy PC games, X-Wing and shit, and then I really liked Rogue Squadron on N64. It was a fucking incredible game. But yeah, the IP itself, like the characters, I could just care less. So
I just remember some terrible AT-AT stuff, so I'm like, oh man, is that the game I'm thinking about? We'll see.
Yeah. ways down the line. SimCity is below a note about the Super NES, and this is, I think, the first time we've seen it called that here in Nintendo Power.
Yes.
So that's a new thing. And yeah, they announced at the Vegas CES as having a September release date. So we are officially have a target date in the States. Directly from the horse. Remember we had the whole deal with GamePro where the guy was writing in all fucking denying that it was coming and all that shit, you know? So the horse's mouth has finally spoken, and that guy is probably a lot more relaxed. So good for him.
See, and this having it, the Super Famicom showcase here, kind of ties in all of my other previous stuff, like seeing it in GamePro and like, I know Super Famicom, this thing coming, like the 4-color thing. Boom, there it is right here in Nintendo Power. It's like stoking up the excitement, you know.
Yep. Only 7 more months of mags to go, Jay. Do you need me to send over some rawhide for you to put between your teeth so you can hold on in the interim between now and then?
Yeah, I gotta hold off. I'll just cryo freeze me until then. Demolition Man.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I mean, I fucking, you know, like I said, I went to the dark side, so it's very exciting to me to be getting to that part of the timeline where I'm gonna really start experiencing all those SNES games that I just don't know shit about because I wasn't there for them. On the SimCity front, they're talking about the Famicom version of the game and don't have intel on whether it will be coming to the US 16-bit system. So they don't know whether the SNES one's going to happen, but they do advise us to look out for the NES iteration of the game, and that, of course, never comes out, but it does get an SNES release as a launch title, so that's good. That's probably one of my favorite SNES games, actually. The only thing in the lesser blurbs that piqued me was the fucking LGN news of a Wolverine-focused title, and I'm pretty sure it's trash, sadly, but I absolutely love Wolverine, so I'll at least turn it on and get angry when that happens. And then the fine print list on the last page is topped by Lolo 3, speaking of HAL and shit we like from HAL. And yeah, I'll play that with enthusiasm when it comes out. The next issue tease features more Star Tropics, Metal Storm, and our first G.I. Joe joint. And then the tech feature is going to give us an in-depth look at the NES control deck hardware. And then Howie closes us out with his Dear Reader's Letter. And he's talking, it was amazing to me, it's like Ask and You Shall Receive. He's talking about that FAO Schwartz date with the Russian cosmonaut that we had questions about from the GamePro. And he fucking confirms that in all, more than 40,000 people showed up that day. So he says it here in Nintendo. Wow. So I think here having the exact quote, though, which I don't believe we had last time, allows you to get to the place where he's referring to over the whole course of the whole day. So I can buy that over the course of an entire, like if they did an event that went from fucking sun up to 100%. You know, into the evening, maybe you get to 40K coming in and out of over the whole day. But I thought it funny that like we had that big question and they just like, nope, here's the answer. I tried, dude. I don't think I've mentioned. I tried reaching out to him both on LinkedIn because I couldn't find a direct email address for him, and then I hunted around pretty hard and found both the Gmail and his consulting firm email and sent him emails asking about this shit, and he has not gotten back. So he's fucking ghosting me, dude. Fucking Howie's ghosting me. Who the fuck do you think you are, Howie? Ghosting me on that interview request, you motherfucker. I actually had some problems with my G. I'm gonna double check. Actually, I got to do that because I've had some trouble with my Gmail. I found out. Oh, that would be from my. I wouldn't have sent it from my my website email address, but yeah, I found out that I've been my NYEH, my Nia Entertainment email addresses are not going to Gmail accounts. Like, it doesn't bounce back. It's nothing. It just literally just never gets to the person. I can't even send stuff my own email, my own Gmail address and email for my work email. And I found out it's because there's like some sort of new certificate technical bullshit I had to do on my fucking website in order to like be certified by Gmail as not spam. So I probably have a million emails that I'm just like, oh, I guess that person doesn't give a fuck about me in the last couple of months. So hopefully Howie's one of those is what I'm getting at here. And I can try that again and maybe he'll get back and make that interview happen.
Title theme from The Punisher, bringing us into our almost last segment before the nominations.
So this issue's power meter aggregate was 63.17%. Relative to all the Nintendo Power issues to date with power meters, it is below par. The average has been 67.02 to this point. The highest was Star Tropics at 78.5%. That's not true, though. Actually, TMNT was 80-something, so that's incorrect. The lowest is a three-way tie. We have Supercars, War on Wheels, and Wayne Gretzky all came in at a dismal 50.5%. And to give you some context on that, Supercars and War Wheels are two of the ones that never got released. So, again, that kind of supporting that whole idea of the grading team sculpting the NES landscape by hand for us.
Man, they stack ranking. Like, if you're below this line, you will get cut off.
Yeah, into the volcano you go. So now we are blinking into the nominations. I think you might have went first last time, so I'll rattle off I got 4 this time around. TMNT 2, of course. Kabuki Quantum Fighter, I think also, of course. Maniac Mansion is one I kind of want to push here. Had those Counselor Corner appearances, and I still think I think it's a really fun story world that I would love to jam on for a few weeks and of course, pot about. And then the last one, I thought just from kind of a scientific perspective, the Cryon Quest. That Mega Man ripoff. I think it'll be super interesting. Because, dude, here's the catch with that. Like, no, it's not as good as Mega Man, but because it is such a hard ripoff, it's the best Vic Tokai game by like a mile. And I would just be curious to see how it goes. You know what I mean? I just would be super curious to see how much time it spends. I feel like it's a science project. I feel, so from a curiosity perspective, that's what brings that to the table. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. But those are my 4. So give us yours, and then we'll go from there.
Fair. I had a tough time this episode because I feel like I'd played a lot of the hotness so much before. So I went with Star Tropics, just out of respect for it, and then Solstice, also. Get the fuck out of this. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, naturally. So obviously we have the overlap there with that hotness. I could maybe consider this ridiculous science project of nonsense, but yeah,
I'm trying to think. What are they actually? Let's do some quick back of the napkin research here.
Because for me, like Kabuki Fighter, it's a good game, but I feel like I've played it thoroughly, so I don't know how interesting that would be. Like,
That's fair.
I think it's a good game though, not.
There is. I mean, again, I think it felt a little better because of those enhanced mechanics, but there is some certain semi-recent redundancy with Shadow the Ninja that I can certainly hear and understand, not wanting to fucking revisit. Okay, yeah, it's a 6.3, 56% from the critics, 395. On the NES on the whole on Moby Games, so yeah, it's pretty bad. I guess maybe the science, maybe the downside of the reality outweighs the benefits of the curiosity on that. That's why we have 2 people to keep this podcast on course. Okay, so I hear the Kabuki criticism. Cryon Conquest is probably a little wacky. TMNT 2 is an obvious overlap. I still Maniac Mansion though, dude. Talk to me about what's your flavor on Maniac Mansion? You said you picked it up and like really jammed on it that first time, I think.
Yeah, I picked it up because I was like, I don't know. It's just one of those titles that I only would see the art for, and ignore it because it was always, a push title. But I'm looking at Mario 3 and other titles, that I wanted to play. So. Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was just different, It's like, I don't know, computer game. You're playing on the NES. You're moving around. I'm not like, what are we doing?
So different.
I don't know. So I guess I don't really think about it. I didn't even really think about it too much.
Well, let's get a feature here. Yeah, this is me plucking it out of that Counselor's Corner love they gave it for sure. So yeah, they didn't get a feature here. We're long past that. Yeah, I don't know, man. And again, I'm fucking the. When I sit and think about, like, how are we gonna? I guess the format, we kind of talked through that. Maybe that's how we pique our interest on it. Is like maybe what it would be is like we pick our 3 characters, and obviously we each have Dave. There's no avoiding that. So like our 2 ancillary characters, we can kind of just talk through their tracks of how they play, how their story, because that's what it is. Each character has their own kind of flowchart to being beneficial to getting through the game, and they're so unique, each one. And the stuff you experience, the problems you have to solve, all that is unique. So each, assuming we didn't have the same parties anyways, each one would have its own unique track to kind of just talk about, and they would kind of be like monologues basically, with some commentary from the other person about maybe some overlap with things in their character storylines. But that would be an interesting format, I think, for a podcast too. Is just kind of like we're just gonna like we're gonna tell a story for each character. We're just gonna kind of give like a sit down at the campfire and tell a story. And the story is so crazy that I think it's kind of interesting.
I mean, I will say, yeah, I have. Like, if we played Ninja Turtles 2, I'll beat it immediately and probably end up playing it just multiple times. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
Like, there were, at least for me specifically, because I played it so many freaking times.
Well, same for me. And honestly, when I sit and think about that, yeah, and we kind of said it when we were talking about the game. Again, not to criticize. Like, it's a great game. I love it. But what are we going to talk about? Jump kicking every one of the bosses. Like, what are we going to, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, again, we would spend time on the IP, but we also kind of just did that with the first, we that was a banger of an episode, but we kind of covered all the bases on the IP stuff, so we would be redundant as fuck, maybe, and a lot of the shit we would talk about. It's not like there's anything new story-wise, like we're not into a new realm of storytelling with TMNT or anything from the first game to the arcade game. So as much fun as the game would be, shit to talk about that would be unique and interesting for a podcast perspective, I don't know how much there would be that wouldn't, again, just be repeating ourselves. So that's kind of scary.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, some of the follow-ups 3 and 4 have even more varied moveset,
right,
than the arcade game specifically does. So I could see that.
Yeah. And also, I mean, those, when we get to those, we're a little, I guess there is more for the Nintendo, and I don't even know about those. So those would be playing anew too. So that, you have familiarity with them, but I would be more on board for those because I don't have any familiarity with them. So that would be more interesting for me from just a gameplay standpoint. And I assume they're all couch co-op games too. So that the thing that we really want from this game, that cooperative TMNT vibe, we can get from those games, and maybe have a little more to talk about too.
Yeah, because I'd be playing it likely with my son or something. Like I wouldn't be playing. I'd be like, hey, see, jump up and let's play through this kind of thing.
Well, that's my pitch. It's your baby. I'm not going to kill it if you don't want to, but I think that's my pitch for trying to get us on Maniac Mansion and doing something a little interesting and different.
Man, thinking through it, yeah. I mean, I was definitely prepared. Ninja Turtles too, like that's what's happening. But yeah, when I think about I'm going. It's been a while since I played this specific one, but I do know it very well. Even when I was playing with the kids when we first got the Cowabunga collection a couple months ago, it's so fun though. It's always fun to play. It's always fun to play.
We can still play the game, Jay. We can do a couch co-op of a game. We talk about doing it all the time and never do. Maybe we should. Two people that have been married for too long and they have to set their sex dates. Same idea. Yes, it seems a little
updates.
Yeah, it seems a little inorganic and overly structured, but maybe that's just what life requires in order to get things done. So, maybe that's what we should do is have a weekly time slot to do this. Yeah, and obviously we can fill it in the weeks where we have game app stuff to deal with that game, but also hit these things that we kind of fly by. There's been a hand. Maybe honestly, that's another list I can start since I love starting fucking lists. It's just couch co-op sessions that we haven't, we wanted to do, and for whatever reason didn't happen because of the game app flow or whatever it might be. That might be a cool list to start as well, and I can start it with this game.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'd be willing, I don't know how big of a game Maniac Mansion is. Like, that concerns me.
It's a game. I mean, honestly, but it's the kind of thing. Like I said, it's nowhere near side questy. It is a little limbo-y and could easily maybe fall into the kill quest episode side of it. But like, if you know what you're doing,
which I don't,
you probably of course you don't, right?
Yeah.
But you could. I mean, you could probably beat the game in like fucking like 11 minutes or something if you.
What?
Not even that. Maybe if you know all the steps, because it is so much. It's one of those games. It's old school point and clicks mindset in that you don't necessarily die. You get thrown in the prison. The dungeon prison of the house. So it's not death, but it's the same concept of like, that didn't work, come back and try a different approach kind of thing, So it's right. That's where the length of the game comes from, is just literally trial and error, or hopefully educated trial and error, not just random trial and error, but just trying things and again, combining items a little bit at times, which is not the best thing maybe necessarily. But I think the game does it pretty tactfully, and is certainly, like I said, so quirky, and the characters are so fun and interesting that you'll be entertained even at the failures. And I think that is where a lot of the fun comes in, is that they do a good job of having you enjoy your failure. And that's maybe even strongest pitch, to be honest with you, is that even when things aren't going well, you're still entertained, and that is a great video game core thing, I think.
That's fine. I'm sitting here thinking, like, counterpoint. I do have both the arcade version of Ninja Turtles 2 and the NES version of that on that Cowabunga collection, so I could legitimately play them both and like see how I feel differently.
We're not. I mean, you could, I guess. Yes, that's.
I mean, I could just do that.
That's, you can also do that. I mean, I was gonna say, like, we're not playing arcade games here. That's not what we're about. But I do, that game in particular, it is like this revolutionary bringing of the arcade onto the NES. Maybe that makes sense as like a scientific thing that fits into kind of what we're doing here. But I mean, other than those two stages, obviously, I really don't know.
No, I think we should go with Maniac Mansion, because I think even when, like I said, when we tried it out, I started playing this, and we talked about it at the time. Like, I started playing it with my son, the NES version, playing 2, and then I realized, if I do the arcade one, my other son can play as well, since that's 4-player. You know what I mean? Like, they keep that functionality the same. So it's like, I've actually kind of done that experiment already. When I think back. So it's let's go Maniac Mansion.
Okay, word. That's fun. That was the one on this list. Well, I guess not as bad as I thought we'd be debating between Kabuki and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pretty hard. I did not expect Maniac Mansion to end up in the real conversation, so I'm kind of excited about that.
It's a good game. I've played it.
And it has that great mag feature too to help you out. So because of the nature of it, I think there is. I mean, you played it a little bit, so you're not totally cold going into it. But having that mag feature to work from and get you going and help you through maybe some of the puzzle, because it is like it's its own Lucasfilm games of their own style of even puzzle. I would say, it's like it's a certain kind of mental approach to things that maybe is not the most intuitive. So having the magazine feature, like a really substantial one, to kind of grease the wheels for you, I think is a cool thing too. That'll be helpful and totally fair to employ into your play. So, nice. All right, word. That's exciting. I'm very pleased to be knocking that off as a game up here. So we'll play that next, and then we are back on our Game Pro shit for installment 19 of that magazine. We perhaps will get in the next side quest before that happens. Have you played that at all?
No, I have not.
No, not fancy. Okay. I'm cooking. I think, to a place that I'm maybe going to call the stopping point. I'm not sure. It's like, I keep thinking about, I think I did this in Dragon Warrior 2, where I was like, man, if I keep going like this, we're going to have like 74 episodes to this side quest. So I'm like, I want to like do a sizable chunk, because I keep thinking about the fact we have to go to other planets in this one. And like, I'm not off the fucking planet, the first planet yet. So like, I'm curious.
Oh no.
It scares me to not know the full flow of the story, I guess, on like choosing too early of stopping points. So, well, I'm again drawing out the quest longer than it should be. But I think I'm almost to a spot. So I'll have that over to you guys. Maybe we can start talking about dates for that. You can subscribe to the pod on the platform provided by whatever dumbest company that serves up your pottery. Please rate and leave positive shit for the pod on that podcast platform of choice or any other. The website is nyehentertainment.com/ISOH pod. You can email us directly at isohpodcast@gmail.com as long as you're not emailing from my URL. And follow the pod on Facebook and or Instagram at isohpod. Link to the YouTube gameplay videos playlist is in the show notes. There's the ISOH subreddit if you want to get down with us on Reddit. We don't have a Patreon, but if you'd like giving money to things podcasters tell you to, and would like to do so in our direction, the Able Gamers Foundation creates custom gaming rigs for gamers with disabilities, and that is cool as fuck. AbleGamers.org is where you can find them. We're rocking the t-shirts. And Jay, what are your socials?
Gentleman JB without the second E. That is my socials and my gamer tag. So come, let's game on Xbox.
I am on Twitter at Josh Folan. On Instagram at My Shift Key is Broke. My Oculus tag is My Shift Key is Broke. Yeah, okay, bye.